Because he was too angry at himself, the young man decided to smash the guitar that an old man had given him. As the young man raised the guitar high, his shadow on the ground suddenly split in two, and the moon in the sky was also doubled. Before he understood what was happening, a strange musical instrument shop suddenly appeared before him. The boy slowly stepped inside, and every corner of this shop felt incredibly familiar to him. A person claiming to be the shop owner suddenly appeared. The boy decided to sell his guitar for some money. The owner generously handed him 2 bundles of cash. He reminded the boy that if he ever wanted to change his mind, he should come back to find him. But locating the shop would be harder than going to heaven. The owner handed the boy a receipt and insisted that he must keep it safe. Losing the receipt would lead to something terrible. The young man opened the door and stepped outside, only to find the scene had completely changed. Picking up the newspaper, he realized he had returned to 1995. Growing up in a deaf family, Jae had been very understanding from a young age. Moreover, he was naturally intelligent and quick-witted. In a family where everyone was deaf, only Jae could hear and speak like a normal person. Jae's parents ran a small eatery at the construction site to serve the workers. Every day, Jae diligently helped his parents at the shop. Everyone loved the smart and quick-witted boy. Occasionally, some workers would secretly slip him a few coins for spending. In return for their kindness, Jae would gladly treat them to a glass of good wine. Jae served as a bridge between his parents and the outside world, as he was the only one capable of hearing and speaking. That day, the food supplier arrived to deliver goods as usual. However, the items seemed strangely unusual. Realizing it was all expired food, Jae's mother called her son to help her deal with it. First, she had the delivery person take the items back. She then warned the delivery person not to do such disgraceful things in the future. They may be deaf, but they weren't foolish. Don't play tricks like that. If you don't bring fresh vegetables tomorrow, don't expect to get paid. On Christmas night, the snow fell thickly, covering the ground. The soft sound of the falling snow awakened little Jae. Seeing her son so excited, his mother was curious to know what the sound of snow was like. In Jae's eyes, the sound of falling snow was like clothes drying in the sun. Hearing her son say this, his mother suddenly burst into laughter. Her son had a gifted to be a poet. After that, the whole family happily went outside to enjoy the falling snow and build a snowman. The family played joyfully, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Loose. Jae accidentally noticed that a screw on the scaffolding was showing signs of coming. Below the scaffolding, his older brother was engrossed in building a snowman. Seeing the danger approaching his brother, Jae rushed to save him, but he accidentally slipped and fell hard. In a moment of peril, Jae used a laser pointer to signal his parents. The red dot quickly caught the attention of his playful father. After seeing the signal, the father hurried toward his older son, and with all his effort, he managed to save him just in time. Once everything was over, the family sat around the fire. At that moment, Jae asked his father a question that would trouble him for a lifetime. If both Jae and his brother were in danger at the same time, who would you save? Seeing his son's eager gaze, the father replied. His father's answer left a deep impression on Jae, one he would remember for life. After a long period of hard work, Jae's family was finally able to rent a house. Although it was just a basement apartment, Jae's family was still very happy. On the day the family moved in, the landlord warmly welcomed them. However, during the conversation, she made some very unpleasant remarks. She rented the basement to Jae's family because she believed they wouldn't be able to settle elsewhere. Because Jae's family couldn't hear or speak. Knowing the landlord was mocking his family, Jae chose to remain silent and said nothing to his parents. He willingly endured this heart-wrenching pain alone. Before turning to leave, the landlord accidentally noticed a mountain of certificates piled high belonging to Jae. She quickly contacted her son to report about Jae. Soon after, the landlord's son appeared at Jae's door. The boy initially came to make friends with Jae. After that, he wanted to invite Jae around the neighborhood to pay a visit somewhere. Thinking it was a good idea, Jae expressed his desire to bring his brother along. However, the landlord's son showed annoyance at this request. He only wanted to invite Jae because it was a class gathering. With no other option, his parents reluctantly agreed to let Jae go out alone. After receiving his parents' approval, Jae followed the landlord's son around exploring everywhere. As they passed by a musical instrument shop, the landlord's son warned Jae with a serious expression. This isn't a place to come and go as you please or to joke around. It was rumored that the shop owner had an ankle monitor. Just looking at him, you could tell he was dangerous. Before the children could finish talking, the old man with silver hair stepped outside. Seeing the old man, the kids scattered in a panic. After that, Jae was taken to an internet cafe by his friends. But before he could even get comfortable in his seat, his father began calling him repeatedly. His father wanted Eun Jaeol to come home with his brother because their parents had to go out for work. Reluctantly, Eun Jaeol picked up his backpack and left. The other kids who were with him were also very disappointed. The kids no longer wanted Eun Jaeol to join them. However, since getting to know Eun Jaeol, the landlord's son had his own agenda. Originally, the boy aimed to invite Eun Jaeol into his grow. He wanted Eun Jaeol to write his name on the test. He would do it reversely. Only then would the boy avoid having to change his roster in the upcoming exam. In the end, however, Eun Jaeol still refused the temptation. He decided not to help the landlord's son with his wrongdoing. Because of this, the landlord's son splashed water in Eun Jaeol's face. The boy even threatened to kick Eun Jaeol's family out. After school, Eun Jaeol walked alone down the long path. He felt helpless at the thought of his family being thrown out onto the street. Feeling helpless, Eun Jaeol sat in front of the music shop and cried. Seeing this, the shop owner tossed Eun Jaeol a cleaning cloth. He kindly invited Eun Jaeol inside to enjoy a warm cup of hot cocoa. The owner was very kind, but Eun Jaeol felt very sorry. He still felt a bit hesitant, fearing what the owner might do to him. Reluctantly, the owner revealed his ankles, which were free of any electronic monitor. After hearing Eun Jaeol's story, the owner continuously scolded the landlord's son for being naughty. He advised Eun Jaeol not to associate with that group, because those who associate with bad influences will become like them. Moreover, the boy should tell his parents about what happened today. With the owner's comfort, Eun Jaeol felt a bit more at ease. However, he decided not to tell his parents about it, fearing that they would worry. His parents could not solve this problem. Whenever Eun Jaeol made a mistake, his parents would scold him twice or 3 times more than usual. They could see the obvious problem, but they would blame for their family. People believed that because Eun Jaeol's parents couldn't hear or speak, they were unable to raise him properly. Thus Eun Jaeol always tried his best to make the best things. The owner, understanding the boy's situation, offered to teach him how to play the guitar. Eun Jaeol thought about what he had just heard outside the shop. The song had made him feel sad and cry, so he nodded in agreement. So, the owner began teaching Eun Jaeol guitar, helping him learn to communicate through the instrument. Eun Jaeol was captivated by the beautiful music the owner played, gradually falling in love with the guitar. Thus, Eun Jaeol began to learn the guitar. Because he rejected the landlord's son, Eun Jaeol was always bullied at school. But with music, Eun Jaeol's heart remained amused, filled with sunshine. The boy ignored the taunts of the landlord's son. He even deliberately asked the landlord about the tenant protection laws. He emphasized that the landlord could not evict tenants during the rental period. Hearing this, the landlord's son ground his teeth in anger. As the seasons changed from spring to winter, Eun Jaeol's guitar skills reached new heights. Seeing the right moment, the owner took out an old music player. He asked Eun Jaeol to listen to the track inside and suggested that he come up with a guitar riff. If he pleased the owner, he would give him a guitar what he liked most as a present. Eun Jaeol happily agreed and said goodbye to the owner as he went home. At that moment, he saw the landlord's son being punished for getting a failing grade. Seeing him wearing only a thin shirt in the cold weather, Eun Jaeol kindly gave his jacket to the boy. Eun Jaeol returned home just as his parents were getting ready to go out. His parents instructed Eun Jaeol to take care of his brother, who had a fever. After checking on his brother, who was sleeping in bed, Eun Jaeol went into the living room to listen to music and work on his composition. Eun Jaeol seemed to have a natural talent for music. He became deeply immersed in the unnamed piece and diligently began to write his own music. Without hearing the knocking at the door from the landlord's son, who had come to return the jacket. Not seeing anyone answer, he threw the jacket through the window. Just as a food delivery worker passed by and dropped a cigarette butt on the ground, the landlord's son, in anger, threw the cigarette butt into the room. Moments later, the cigarette butt ignited and caught the curtains on fire. Once Eun Jaeol finished his composition, he prepared to go outside to tell good news with the owner. On his way, Eun Jaeol called the owner but realized no one was picking up. When he arrived at the music shop, it was pitch dark inside. Eun Jaeol knocked on the door, but no one answered. At that moment, the owner was lying on the floor inside the shop. Unable to find the owner, Eun Jaeol reluctantly turned to head back, feeling disappointed. As soon as he reached his house, he noticed a large number of firefighters nearby. He quickly squeezed through the crowd and ran to his mother. His mother anxiously told Eun Jaeol that his father had rushed inside to save him. Eun Jaeol recalled his father's sayings. If both he and his brother were in danger at the same time, his father would save him immediately. Because Eun Jaeol's voice connected their family to the outside world. Moreover, Eun Jaeol could run outside to seek help from others. To his father, he was a little angel. Thinking of this, Eun Jaeol felt immense regret and sat on the ground, bursted into tears. At that moment, his father was rescued and brought outside. Seeing Eun Jaeol safe, he felt immense joy. After that, he gradually fainted. The homeowner stood in the crowd witnessing everything and noticed that his son seemed strange. It turned out that her son was so scared he nearly wet his pants. seeing Eun Jaeol safe and sound. The homeowner went to the hospital room and demanded that his parents take responsibility. Eun Jaeol's mother explained that the fire was caused by a cigarette butt and not due to their actions. The homeowner, despite being angry, could not understand their sign language. She then ordered the entire family to move immediately. Reluctantly, the whole family had to find another place to stay. Before leaving, Eun Jaeol took the opportunity to say goodbye to the owner's store. He hurriedly ran to the old store and saw a white lantern hanging outside. Eun Jaeol burst into tears. Time passed in the blink of an eye, and 6 years later, a new house was built at the site of the old store. Eun Jaeol's older brother became a taekwondo athlete. Eun Jaeol was in high school and was always at the top of his class. The two brothers, Eun Jaeol and his older brother, were incredibly handsome. So, whenever they walked side by side outside, they attracted so many girls. Eun Jaeol's brother told him that he had a girlfriend who was very beautiful and also deaf. She was currently studying at the art college. How could a deaf person practice sign language? So, his brother guessed that she had pretended to be deaf in front of him to attract his attention. Eun Jaeol put on a silent expression. His brother was indeed overly confident. After finishing, the two brothers received a message from their mother and hurried back to the store. Their father was showing off his son in front of acquaintances, with a blackboard that could rotate in the middle of the table. Their father had written down what he wanted to say on it. Their father had drunk a bit too much and immediately slumped over the table. The two brothers helped their father to the bed, but he stood up and held on to Eun Jaeol. He told his brother that the acquaintances sitting at the table with him today had once looked down on him. Now they could no longer look down on him. Because he had two wonderful sons. One would be a future athlete on the national taekwondo team. The other was the top student in his school and would become a promising doctor. Hearing his father speak, it was clear that he was filled with joy and had high hopes for Eun Jaeol to become a doctor. Eun Jaeol looked at his father's smiling face, and received a warm hug from him. However, his own face did not show any joy. Eun Jaeol went to his desk and reminded him of his sayings. Looking around at the wall filled with encouraging words, all of them were the expectations of his parents for him. This had also turned it into his own dream, while suppressing his true feelings. No one in the family knew that Eun Jaeol did not want to become a doctor at all. His true passion was playing the guitar. Eun Jaeol played guitar on the streets with his passion, attracting many passers-by to stop and watch. In music, Eun Jaeol felt at ease, and his eyes brightened with joy. He connected the silent world and the sound world through language and sign language. Now he had found another way, which was to use music with others to express his feelings. Eun Jaeol's exceptional musical skills caught the attention of the band Spin Night. The members invited Eun Jaeol to join the band as a guitarist. Eun Jaeol, not wanting to reveal his true identity, immediately refused. But before leaving, they still handed him a disc and the band's address. Eun Jaeol put the disc in his personal locker. This small space was filled with music-related items. It was his own world and dream that others could not see. So he took the music disc and ran to the band's location. But before joining, he set two conditions. First, he requested that no one remove their masks while performing. Second, he insisted that family and education must come first. Before long, the band held a performance. With Eun Jaeol's participation, a band coordinated perfectly with each other. The energetic music instantly lit up the entire hall. Especially Eun Jaeol's solo performance thrilled everyone. Fortunately, Eun Jaeol's outstanding performance was praised by an entertainment company. They wanted to invite the band to be the guest band for an artist's overseas tour. The manager informed them that next week, producer Maju would come to meet them. Hearing this, the members embraced each other with excitement. They knew that once they earned the favor of producer Maju, the band could release an album and bring their musical dream within reach. To celebrate this historic day, the members toasted to encourage each other. In the middle of it all, Eun Jaeol received a message from his father. He said he had been in a car accident and needed Eun Jaeol to come to the police station. Eun Jaeol quickly went to the police station to act as an interpreter. Fortunately, his father had only fallen to the ground while avoiding the car that caused the accident, and was not seriously injured. What surprised him was that the driver who crashed into his father's store was the homeowner he hadn't seen in years. Because all the cameras around were broken, they couldn't identify the hit-and-run driver, as the homeowner insisted he was responsible. But his father ensured that the driver was not her. After speaking with his father, Eun Jaeol informed the police that he had witnessed the driver was a man, and that man was the son of the homeowner. The homeowner, wanting to protect his son, stubbornly took the blame for him. In the end, due to insufficient evidence, they could only wait for further investigation before resolving the matter. It turned out that his father's patience did not make the homeowner and his son realize their mistakes. Eun Jaeol's father still remembered the fire from years ago. He regretted not suing them back then. Eun Jaeol was not the one who started the fire, but since no one would listen to the disabled and poor, he couldn't speak up. This had troubled him for many years. His father's sayings made Eun Jaeol feel guilty. If he had been there today, perhaps the real culprit could have been caught. Eun Jaeol thought of his brother and father, who had nearly lost their lives in the fire. At that moment, he didn't want to repeat the same mistake. To protect his family, he decided to give up music. The members had no idea that he lived in a special family. So when Eun Jaeol said he couldn't participate in the band anymore, they thought he was getting a bit arrogant due to his newfound fame. They even attacked him for no reason. Eun Jaeol had no choice but to express what was in his heart. He had nearly harmed his family once before. He had left his deaf brother alone at home, unable to call for help. Eun Jaeol thought everyone in the house had forgotten, but he was wrong. That wound still lingered deep in each person's heart. He had to return to the path he belonged to before it became irreversible. It would be very dangerous for him to pursue his own dream. One member chased after Eun Jaeol and told him that they would continue to stick to their musical path. They also offered Eun Jaeol a chance to return whenever he was ready. Eun Jaeol returned to his study room with a heavy heart, only to find his mother waiting for him. Seeing the bruise on her son's face, his mother looked worried. She then took out Eun Jaeol's report card. Recently, his grades had dropped significantly. His mother occasionally came to the study room to bring him food, but she often found him absent. His mother wanted to know why, but she didn't pressure Eun Jaeol to tell her. She hoped he would take the initiative to talk to her about the issue. She decided to keep this matter a secret from her husband. She wanted her husband to be happy, and Eun Jaeol was a source of that happiness for him. Eun Jaeol couldn't answer her at all. His dreams and family love felt like chains so tight that he could barely breathe. In a fit of anger, Eun Jaeol rode his bike to the old musical instrument store. The old house had long become a new one, but he still remembered the past with the store owner. In a moment of panic, the store owner appeared before him, bringing back memories of his childhood. Just as Eun Jaeol was reminiscing, a woman stepped out of the room. She held an empty bottle and asked him if he liked her daughter. Eun Jaeol explained that this place had been a musical instrument store a few years ago, and that he was very close to it. He didn't expect the woman to hear this. It was surprising that the woman knew Eun Jaeol's name. Before moving away that year, Eun Jaeol had cried in front of the instrument store. That scene happened to be witnessed by the mother and her daughter. Soon after, the woman invited him into the house and said she had something to give him. The woman was the daughter of the store owner. She had lived abroad since she was in high school. She returned to her hometown upon receiving news of her father's passing. The woman entrusted Eun Jaeol with the belongings her father had left behind. Inside was a guitar. He recalled those beautiful memories. The store owner had set conditions for him to own the guitar, and he had completed the challenge. After wandering for 6 long years, the gift the store owner wanted to give finally found its rightful owner. Then, the woman shared with Eun Jaeol the last sayings her father had left behind. That boy knew how to talk to the guitar. He knew how to use his guitar to send messages to the world. He had seen Eun Jaeol as a talented guitarist. Eun Jaeol cried silently. Eun Jaeol, who once wanted to give up on his dreams, was now shaken again by these words. The spirit of the store owner appeared once again beside Eun Jaeol. He asked him about the turmoil in his heart, a life that made his heart resonate. A life that made his father proud. No matter which path he chose, the other side would cause him pain. The store owner suggested that this should be decided by flipping a coin. He even scolded Eun Jaeol for studying the arts yet not understanding the metaphor at all. Consider your life like a coin and try flipping it to make a decision. After saying this, the store owner vanished. Soon after, Eun Jaeol rejoined the band. He held the guitar the store owner had gifted him, practicing with a smile on his face. The next day at the dining table, his father signaled that he had found the black box of a car near the accident site. Therefore, he wanted Eun Jaeol to accompany him to meet the car owner to check the dashcam footage. However, Eun Jaeol had to go practice with the band, so he had to make an excuse to decline. His brother quickly lied, saying that Eun Jaeol had to go with him to meet the coach about changing their practice location. Eun Jaeol realized that his brother might know everything, so he went to ask him. His brother then pulled out a video of the band's performance. He immediately recognized that the masked person was his younger brother. Eun Jaeol invited his brother to bring his girlfriend to the performance. But his brother replied that he wouldn't go, as even if he did, he wouldn't be able to hear his younger brother's music. Before the performance, the lead singer suddenly caught a cold. Eun Jaeol ran to buy medicine and was accidentally seen by the homeowner. The homeowner secretly followed him and saw the band members taking medicine. She mistakenly thought Eun Jaeol was hanging out with bad friends. At that moment, she received a call from the police station. The police informed her that they had found evidence of the perpetrator. After that, she went to the police station. They showed her a video confirming that her son was the perpetrator. The homeowner angrily spoke to Eun Jaeol's father. He believed his son was truly a good person, but he didn't know that his son was drinking and smoking. The person who admired him the most in this world was his son. Eun Jaeol's father didn't understand what the homeowner was saying and quickly drove away. On the other hand, before the official performance, the main singer's voice had still not recovered. To avoid affecting the overall performance, the band asked Eun Jaeol to be the main singer. Eun Jaeol felt extremely anxious. For the first time, he took off the mask and sang heartfeltly. At that moment, in the audience, there was not only the famous director Ma Zul. His father, although he couldn't hear anything, hurried in to see his son performing passionately on stage. His world completely crumbled. After the concert, Eun Jaeol knew he had disappointed his father, but he still mustered the courage to express his thoughts. He loved music, loved singing, and loved being on stage. His father believed that he was just seeking temporary joy due to the immense academic pressure he faced. After losing his way, he would return to the right path. But this time, Eun Jaeol did not listen to his father's words. His true self was not what his parents liked. But unfortunately, this was really Eun Jaeol. Eun Jaeol pushed his father's hand away when he tried to take him away. He did not want to be used as a tool for his father to show off anymore. He was neither a translator nor a fire alarm. He didn't even want to be the angel that his father often imagined. Hearing that, his father was extremely angry. His son had never expressed his true thoughts to him before. Eun Jaeol was also angry. He didn't know how to explain to his father because he couldn't hear. Eun Jaeol took the bag and left the stage. He remembered how his father had protected him from childhood to adulthood. He realized that his words were somewhat excessive. Overwhelmed with regret, Eun Jaeol decided to smash the guitar. However, this action changed his life. After stepping into a strange musical instrument store, Eun Jaeol found himself transported back to 1995. Stepping out of the store, a boy approached Eun Jaeol. He looked at the name tag on the boy's chest, which read Zizan. Eun Jaeol was shocked to discover that the boy in front of him was his father when he was young. He not only knew how to talk but also specially invited Eun Jaeol to join his band. Eun Jaeol's father, Zizan, was now an 18-year-old high school student who often daydreamed. Zizan had a dream of music and had fallen for the school's goddess from another school. To win the heart of the goddess, Zizan invited her to join him, to publicly attend the school's anniversary celebration. He promised that his band would show a special performance just for her. The goddess agreed amidst the cheers of the crowd, but with the condition that if Zizan didn't keep his promise, he would not be allowed to appear in front of her again. Zizan immediately agreed. The goddess took Zizan's hand and looked at him. There were no signs of him having played any musical instrument at all. Moreover, the songs the goddess wanted to hear were quite difficult to perform. After that, she left, not wanting him to appear in front of her during this time. But she had underestimated Zizan's chances of becoming her boyfriend. Zizan appointed himself as the manager for the first time and quickly recruited members to form a band. Unfortunately, Zizan didn't know how to play any musical instrument at all. The members were immediately discouraged and wanted to leave the group. Zizan promised that he would find a skilled guitar master to join the team. The band members mentioned Song Jin, a genius guitarist. To find Song Jin, Zizan posted an ad on the internet and promised that, as long as Song Jin was willing to join the band, he would be provided with 3 meals a day and free accommodation. Zizan thought he was searching for a needle in a haystack, so he didn't have much hope. To his surprise, he received a reply from Song Jin. On the other side, he was worried about not having a stable place to live, and the challenges of life in Seoul for development. So, he immediately accepted the invitation to join the band. On the day they met, Zizan wore his school uniform and went to the agreed-upon location as requested by Song Jin. Song Jin held a school newspaper in his hand so that Zizan could recognize him. While waiting, Song Jin suddenly felt a stomach ache. He hurried to the restroom and accidentally bumped into Eun Jaeol, who had traveled through time. He was dizzy when he realized he had landed in 1995. Eun Jaeol felt confused and still couldn't collect himself when Zizan appeared before him. Zizan mistook Eun Jaeol for Song Jin when he looked at the name tag on Zizan's chest. Eun Jaeol couldn't believe that his father could actually speak when he was young. Unable to control himself, he rushed forward and embraced his father's face. He then continued to confirm his birth date and family information. All the information matched perfectly. Eun Jaeol was certain that the person in front of him was indeed his father. Zizan was frightened by Eun Jaeol's series of actions, so he hurriedly stepped back. He tried to divert Eun Jaeol's attention and ran away. Eun Jaeol angrily chased after Zizan. To get close successfully, Zizan lied to Eun Jaeol, claiming that he was the Song Jin they were looking for. He even mentioned Song Jin's exact birth date and the school he attended, who had studied everything related to music. Eun Jaeol's fluent answers dispelled Zizan's doubts, and he welcomed him to join the band. To get closer, Zizan suggested that they treat each other like brothers and asked Eun Jaeol to call him brother. Eun Jaeol, knowing that Zizan was his father, reluctantly called him brother. Zizan naturally referred to him as Senior Song Jin. Back in the band, Zizan officially introduced the new member, Song Jin. However, the members had seen Song Jin perform before, so they could tell at a glance that he was a fake. They believed Zizan had intentionally brought in a fake, so they beat up the two of them and then walked away. Zizan grabbed Eun Jaeol by the collar and asked him why he had lied. Eun Jaeol, from their earlier conversation, realized that his father wanted to form a band to pursue Se Kyung. Eun Jaeol scolded his father for being only 18 and having an affair, mentioning his mother's name in anger. At that moment, his mother was quietly listening to music, looking at an album of photos, when her thoughts were interrupted, until Se Kyung came to return her clothes. Inadvertently, she helped Se Kyung when she got her clothes wet, lending her a newly bought outfit. Se Kyung was curious and didn't understand why In-ah always wore headphones. In-ah took off her headphones and put them on Se Kyung, then tapped the table a few times. At that moment, Se Kyung understood that In-ah was listening to the rhythm. Se Kyung communicated with In-ah by writing a note, asking her if she liked the band. Chong-ah replied that she liked it very much. Chong-ah then asked Se Kyung if she liked Zizan, because that morning, she had seen Zizan confessing to Se Kyung. Se Kyung firmly replied that she did not like Zizan at all. At that moment, a classmate came over to call Chong-ah to the teacher's office. A girl in the class had copied In-ah's drawing. The teacher called the two of them over and wanted the classmate to admit straightforwardly that she was the one who had copied the drawing. However, the classmate seemed upset and expressed that she had been treated unfairly. Since the girl refused to admit it, the teacher returned the drawings to both of them. Back in class, the girl complained that because of In-ah, she couldn't participate in the competition. She also said that Chong-ah had hindered other people's futures. She claimed that Chong-ah had used special connections to get into the school. After all, Chong-ah's stepmother was the principal of the school. Upon hearing that, she stood up angrily and used her knife to tear her drawing. After that, she destroyed the girl's drawing. The girl then grabbed her hair. At that moment, Se Kyung was still upset about her father wanting to form a band to pursue another woman. In his view, this was a betrayal of his mother. To return to the real world, he searched everywhere for the old music store that had sent him back in time. But he had asked all the locals, and no one had heard of that music store. Eun Kyung suddenly remembered the time he was selling a guitar. The owner had given him a receipt and told him not to lose it. Eun Kyung immediately pulled the receipt out of his pocket and called the number listed on it. Unfortunately, that phone number was not in service. This made Eun Kyung frustrated, and he started singing. Having not eaten anything all day, he was feeling hungry. He wanted to use the money from selling the guitar to buy rice cakes. But paper money in the modern society couldn't be used in 1995. The harsh reality had defeated Eun Kyung. To fill his stomach, he rummaged through all the coins he had and sorted out the ones that could be used. Finally, he was able to buy a box of instant noodles to fill his stomach. At night, Eun Kyung went to a bridge to rest for the night. The cold weather reality made him reminisce about the days spent with his parents. It was only at this moment that he realized he knew very little about his parents. He didn't know the reasons why his father was hearing impaired or why his mother became an orphan. And he had never thought to explore those aspects of their lives. Just as Eun Kyung was lost in his thoughts, a ringing sound caught his attention. He quickly ran outside to check and found that the sound was coming from a nearby phone booth. He picked up the phone, and the owner's voice echoed from the other side. Eun Kyung was eager to ask how to get back, but the owner told him he had to figure it out on his own. The next morning, Eun Kyung woke up, holding his shoes, still in a daze. He thought the phone call from last night had just been a dream. Eun Kyung also came to realize the truth. He needed to figure out why he was there and how to return. At this time, Ji-chan knew that Jang Jin had posted a lawsuit against him for fraud, and he's joined another band as well. Ji-chan wanted to cry but had no tears. He committed to finding a new member within a week. As soon as Ji-chan went out, Eun Kyung appeared to block the way. Eun Kyung wants to join Ji-chan's band. But he was angry, so he ignored Eun Kyung's words. Eun Kyung did not give up constantly following Ji-chan. The two ran to the door of another school. Ji-chan stumbles upon an acquaintance of his. To escape Eun Kyung, he took off his acquaintance's school uniform and went into the school to escape. Because Eun Kyung didn't have a uniform to enter the school, he could only wait at the school gate. Ji-chan entered the campus to meet his former rival from high school. In the 36 stratagems, running away is a form of strategy, and Ji-chan quickly activated his escape mode. He found a storage room and hid inside, thus managing to escape from the group. When he turned back and saw Chong-ah in the corner, he was so startled that he shouted loudly. As for Eun Kyung, he had been waiting at the school gate for a long time. By chance, he saw Se Kyung coming out of the school. Eun Kyung recognized that the person was the daughter of the owner of the old shop. Se Kyung heard Eun Kyung calling her miss and thought he was just like Ji-chan. He used polite reasons to strike up a conversation. At that moment, Ji-chan was hiding in the storage room. In the end, he managed to escape from his relentless pursuers. To express his gratitude, he introduced himself in a clumsy manner. Surprisingly, no matter what he said, she remained silent. The reason she was here was that her friend had locked her in after copying her painting. Seeing that she was bleeding, Ji-chan took off his tie and used it to bandage her. As she looked at the tie coming closer, a terrifying memory suddenly flashed in her mind, causing her to bite Ji-chan's hand in confusion. Ji-chan's scream attracted the attention of the teacher. The teacher sent someone to get the keys while he banged on the door frantically to see what was happening inside. But when the gym teacher opened the door, the two of them had already slipped out through another exit. Unfortunately, Ji-chan forgot his acquaintance's school uniform jacket in the storage room. The two of them held hands and ran wildly through the school grounds. Ji-chan's bright smile and warm hand made her, someone who had always lived in a silent world, feel freedom and excitement for the first time. They ran far away. After they were safe, Ji-chan asked her name, but she still didn't say anything. He reached out to lift the name tag on Chang's chest to see her name clearly. She instinctively twisted his arm. She didn't want anyone to get close to her. Ji-chan wasn't flustered. Before leaving, he left a note for her. He wrote his phone number on it and told her to send him a signal if she needed help. Eun-jaeon, who was waiting outside, started a conversation with Se Ki-young. This time, he asked for news about the shop owner. That was Se Ki-young's father. He confessed that he was his mentor. He had taught him how to play the guitar. He was also the best guitarist he knew. To his surprise, Se Ki-young's expression changed completely upon hearing this. She asked him who he was. Eun-jaeon explained that the shop owner used to run an old store. That was when he taught himself to play the guitar. Se Ki-young tried her best to recognize him and insisted that her father was a physics professor and had never been in business. It turned out that the father she mentioned was her adoptive father, and the shop owner that Eun-jaeon mentioned was her biological father. She suspected that Eun-jaeon had been sent by her biological father to watch over her. It turned out that Se Ki-young, who was envied by everyone, had a life that wasn't very good. When she was younger, she loved to sing and dance. Se Ki-young loved to shine on stage. She had thought that her life would be about pursuing her dreams. But one day, she accidentally opened a room full of secrets. She saw a photo of a three-person family inside and the lottery ticket she was using. She knew that her adoptive parents' daughter had passed away, and Se Ki-young was there to comfort them. To stay in this home, she wanted to replace their biological daughter. She gave up her dream of shining on stage and learned to play the violin, an instrument that her adoptive parents' daughter was very skilled at. At that moment, Ji-chan ran over. Se Ki-young asked if the two of them knew each other. Eun-jaeon and Ji-chan replied inconsistently, with one saying they knew each other and the other saying they didn't. Se Ki-young thought the two were friends and warned them not to appear in front of her. Ji-chan didn't give up and hurriedly chased after her all the way to her house. Ji-chan talked to Se Ki-young formally. He assured her that he would form a band as agreed to perform a special show just for her. Eun-jaeon followed their every move from a distance. When Ji-chan discovered that Eun-jaeon was trying to persuade him to give up on Se Ki-young, after all, Se Ki-young would eventually marry someone else and have a beautiful daughter. She would also have a better life. Ji-chan thought Eun-jaeon was competing with him and kept asking who he was. He wondered why Eun-jaeon had always blocked his path since they met. Eun-jaeon closely saw her young father. He could only say to himself that he was Ji-chan's son. Ji-chan couldn't bear Eun-jaeon's affectionate gaze. To escape Eun-jaeon, he immediately started running wildly. They once again engaged in a chasing game. Ji-chan hurriedly ran home, with Eun-jaeon chasing after him the whole way. Eun-jaeon saw Ji-chan's grandmother angry about her grandson's grades. Eun-jaeon happened to pick up a piece of paper from the ground. He then realized that his father's grades were so bad that he couldn't even imagine. To appease his grandmother's anger, Ji-chan asked Eun-jaeon to pretend to be his tutor. Eun-jaeon immediately cooperated and acted in front of his grandmother. Although she was old, his grandmother was still very sharp-minded. To verify Eun-jaeon's identity as a tutor, she asked Eun-jaeon to test him. Fortunately, Eun-jaeon was also a top student. He not only completed the test ahead of time but also answered all the questions correctly. Soon after, all doubts disappeared. His grandmother asked Eun-jaeon to help Ji-chan get good grades. She also thoughtfully prepared a lavish feast for everyone to gather together. Eun-jaeon was overwhelmed with happiness. He had never thought that in his deaf father's life there would be such a lively and joyful time. He was very curious about why his father was deaf. At night, Eun-jaeon reflected on her childhood amidst Ji-chan's snores. At that time, his father, along with him and his brother, went to take a bath together. Seeing the scar on his father's back, he asked where it came from. Eun-jaeon's father casually replied that he had been injured by accident. The next day, after Eun-jaeon woke up, he received a call from Ji-chan. Ji-chan ordered him to bring his school uniform to school for him. Eun-jaeon stepped to school. He quickly spotted the sign leading to his father's band practice room. Eun-jaeon then followed the directions to the practice room. Seeing the familiar guitar on the ground, he picked it up and began to play skillfully. As soon as Ji-chan heard the music, he ran over, but Eun-jae had already left. The classmate who witnessed Eun-jae playing the guitar told them that that person was not a student of this school. But one notable feature was that he was very handsome. Ji-chan and his brothers split into two groups to search for her. He vowed to find the handsome boy who didn't attend their school. Ji-chan took a few steps and then bumped into Eun-jae. He pulled Ji-chan directly into the classroom and stood at the door, keeping watch while Ji-chan studied seriously. At the end of the school day, Ji-chan worked part-time at the convenience store, and unexpectedly received tickets for a performance. The note inside said to meet him to watch the band perform at 8 p.m. tonight. The sender of the ticket was Se Ki-young. Ji-chan was overjoyed. He pushed Eun-jae aside and dashed outside. In the art class, she was painting a watermelon. This reminded her of her first encounter with Ji-chan. He had tried his best to stop the book from falling on her. The chance encounter stirred a storm of emotions within Chang-ah. She didn't want to be a hindrance to Ji-chan's feelings, so she gave the ticket to him. She didn't want to interfere with Ji-chan's feelings, so she handed the ticket to him. He shouted Se Ki-young's name, thanking her for the invitation. Se Ki-young was surprised and then reiterated to Ji-chan that she hadn't sent him the ticket. Not wanting Ji-chan to bother Se Ki-young, she criticized him for not truly liking music and just wanting to please her. Eun-jae, overhearing, wanted to defend Ji-chan, so she introduced herself as the band's guitarist that he had founded. Under everyone's gaze, he pulled Ji-chan onto the stage and turned on the lights. Eun-jae's guitar playing left everyone stunned. Right after that, Ji-chan slowly picked up the rhythm and sang along. The two of them coordinated perfectly and received enthusiastic applause from the audience. At the end of the performance, Ji-chan formally invited Eun-jae to join the band. Eun-jae couldn't understand Ji-chan's persistence in forming the band. Ji-chan said it was his final youth. After graduating, he wouldn't attend university but would work to earn money, so he wanted to live a vibrant life. Thinking about changing her father's fate, Eun-jae had no choice but to follow him closely to investigate. Eun-jae told Ji-chan that she would help him form an amazing band. But the condition was that Ji-chan couldn't take his eyes off Eun-jae for a year. To make Ji-chan agree to her condition, Eun-jae and the famous guitarist left the band. Earlier, there had been a talent competition. The competition rule was to play improvisationally. The winner would take the other two teammates to join Ji-chan's band. Both were evenly matched in the first round. The guitarist showcased his skills in the second round, thinking he would win. Unexpectedly, Eun-jae's talent shone through. She executed all her techniques in just one go. The thunderous applause made the guitarist concede and agree to join the band as per their agreement. With the addition of the three new members, the band was formed, weaving memories of first love. But new issues arose. The three newcomers didn't recognize their potential. They demanded that the lead singer know how to play an instrument. Ji-chan also needed to pass a high-note test. To convince them, Ji-chan went to a karaoke bar to showcase his singing voice. While singing, Ji-chan's voice soared, and he screamed as if he would burst his lungs. "I can't breathe," and fell down on the table. It was obvious that Ji-chan could not meet the demands of the three newcomers. He felt depressed and even had thoughts about reincarnation. So, Ji-chan quickly ran toward the window. Eun-jae, scared, immediately rushed over to stop Ji-chan. To help the young father regain his confidence, Eun-jae decided to teach Ji-chan step by step. Whether it was playing guitar or forming a band, the condition was that Ji-chan had to get into university. Ji-chan's grandmother had secretly met Eun-jae and given her a red envelope to thank her for tutoring Ji-chan. She also told him that she had placed her trust in Ji-chan. At first, Ji-chan's academic results were very good, but he didn't want his grandmother to overwork herself, which was why he became the person he was today. He lied about being uninterested in studying and just wanting to make money. The only desire of his grandmother throughout her life was to see Ji-chan graduate with graduation clothes. Hearing this, Eun-jae's eyes turned red, and he told Ji-chan about his grandmother's wish, and promised to help Ji-chan with his studies until he could pass the university. Ji-chan didn't understand why Eun-jae was so nice to him and even helped him regain his dignity. In front of Se Ki-young, he formed a band, taught him how to play the guitar, and tutored him. Thinking about the things Eun-jae had done for him, Ji-chan couldn't help but feel curious. It was clear that he and Eun-jae were not related. Eun-jae replied that in a past life, Ji-chan had saved him many times. In Eun-jae's mind, he recalled when his father rushing into the fire to save him. He had also rescued him from the water. Eun-jae couldn't tell Ji-chan. The only thing he could do was supervise Ji-chan's studies. Changing Ji-chan's fate was the most important thing. Ji-chan tried to escape, but in the end, he couldn't get away from Eun-jae. After that, a clear melody rang out from the room. His grandmother cried as she watched this scene from outside the door. The next day, Eun-jae went to the bookstore and accidentally passed by Chang-ah. Chang'e often visited this shop, no matter how many times she thought about it. The scene of Ji-chan bravely saving the beauty always made her blush and her heart race. She turned around and happened to see Eunjaeon walking in. Strangely, at that moment, Eunjaeon's figure reminded Chang'e of Ji-chan. Leaving the bookstore, Eunjaeon received the good news that the band had secured the final performance for the school anniversary celebration. At the same time, he also learned that Saekyoung would study abroad. Eunjaeon was afraid Ji-chan would be upset, so he decided to keep this secret from him for the time being. But during the meal, someone brought up Saekyoung. Eunjaeon and Ji-chan's friend came up with various reasons. They wanted Ji-chan to focus on the band's rehearsals first. Ji-chan was convinced and suppressed his desire to see Saekyoung, focusing instead on practicing guitar. Despite his hard work, he still couldn't improve. Eunjaeon taught him to feel it with his heart. When he played sincerely, the guitar would respond with similar emotions. If he could move the audience, that was the best music. Ji-chan gradually increased his effort, but fate would take its course. When Ji-chan arrived at school, he accidentally learned from his classmates that Saekyoung was about to study abroad. He couldn't accept the harsh reality. But suddenly, things took a turn. Saekyoung, who had just gone abroad for a few days, returned. During this time, she had put away the trophy and cut her hair. She decided to let go of her mother's expectations and live true to herself. Saekyoung set up a stall on the street, selling clothes she no longer wore. Eunjaeon approached and asked why she had come back. Saekyoung saw a city management officer approaching. She made a condition. If Eunjaeon helped her pack up the items, she would tell him. Eunjaeon quickly agreed and helped Saekyoung do it. Once they arrived safely, Eunjaeon blamed Saekyoung. She shouldn't have given Ji-chan hope only to disappoint him again. Saekyoung explained her reason for coming back. She discovered that after moving to the U.S., her father had been unfaithful. Her mother drank all day, trying to escape the reality that her husband had fled back to South Korea, but she hoped that Eunjaeon would keep the secret about seeing her. In her current state, Saekyoung didn't even have the courage to live. She didn't want to get involved with anyone. Ji-chan, feeling sad, had no idea that his goddess was so close. Feeling lonely, Ji-chan played the guitar and sang to himself in the practice room. Memories of the moments he spent with Saekyoung flashed through his mind. Ji-chan's singing was full of emotion, and the other members were deeply moved as they listened. They recognized Ji-chan's natural talent. However, since Saekyoung was gone, he lost interest in the music. When Ji-chan was working part-time at the beverage shop, he crossed paths with Chang'e. He felt discouraged and didn't want to talk to anyone, until the boss told him that the person who left the invitation last time was Chang'e. At that moment, Ji-chan realized that in front of Saekyoung, he had always been a clown. Ji-chan took the note and asked Chang'e why she did like that. Chang'e had no explanation. All she could do was run away, but she couldn't hear the sound of the trumpet playing from behind her. Ji-chan quickly pulled her to the side with his agility. Escaping danger, Ji-chan grew increasingly angry and asked Chang'e if she was tired of living. Were her ears just for decoration? Was she deaf? Chang'e realized Ji-chan's questions through his lip movements and quietly walked away. Ji-chan couldn't help but complain to the boss when he returned to the shop. He then learned from the boss that Chang'e was deaf. Chang'e leaned against the telephone booth, feeling sad and crying. It seemed that the heavens were pitying her, as suddenly it started to rain heavily. Ji-chan recalled his hurtful words and felt guilty, so he went out to look for her. An umbrella appeared in front of him, and the person holding it turned out to be Saekyoung, whom he had longed for. At the same time, Eunjaeon was still thinking about Saekyoung in the real world. It was clear that she had returned home after receiving the news of her father's death. He wondered why she had come back so soon after just a few days abroad. What had happened? To prevent Saekyoung from her parents' love, Eunjaeon needed to find her mother as soon as possible. He remembered his father saying that it was love at first sight with his mother in the sign language class. If his father could have avoided the accident, he wouldn't have lost his hearing. But if he had done that, he also wouldn't have attended the sign language class to meet his mother. Then Eunjaeon and his brother would not have been born either. Just as Eunjaeon found himself in trouble due to the complicated situation, he accidentally saw Chang'e soaked in the rain. He didn't even realize that the girl in front of him was his mother. Out of kindness, he offered the umbrella to her and ran into the rain to find Ji-chan. Chang'e didn't want to wait any longer. She wanted to explain to Ji-chan. She wanted to share all her experiences with Ji-chan, from her childhood to adulthood. Before, Chang'e hadn't been as cold as she was now. When she was young, she had a loving mother who protected her. Her mother gently taught her sign language, showing her how to express love and affection. But those good times ended in the summer, after her mother was forced to leave and her stepmother moved in with the family. From that point on, she had to endure a lot of torment. Countless times, she was forced into a dark, small room, causing her to become defensive and distant. She had never done anything with anyone else. Until one day, while she was by the window of the small dark room, she saw Ji-chan run into the party to interrupt. He disrupted the party, making his stepmother furious. She was delighted by Ji-chan's series of antics. That was the first time she had smiled. She never forgot Ji-chan. She thought it was just a chance encounter among the crowd. Until Ji-chan saved her at the bookstore. In that moment, she suddenly believed that their meeting was fate. She began to secretly follow Ji-chan's life. She has bought the same T-shirt as Ji-chan. Unfortunately, she had lent her jacket to Saekyung to wear. From that moment on, everything went off course. Now, she wanted to tell Ji-chan that she had loved him since their first accidental meeting. She never expected that fate would play tricks on her. She saw Saekyung standing in front of Ji-chan. Chang-ah threw her umbrella to the ground and turned to walk away in the rain. To make up for his mistakes, he asked Saekyung to wait for him for a moment. Having said that, he hurried Chang and she felt extremely sad, ignored him. She got on taxi and left afterwards. After Chang-ah left, Ji-chan picked up the watermelon keychain that she had accidentally dropped on the ground. Saekyung was left in the crowd. Eun-jaeon approached her and asked why she hadn't kept promise and stayed away from Ji-chan. He was surprised that Saekyung was acting unusually. She expressed her thoughts. She didn't want to tense him but get accustomed to him. Eun-jaeon saw Saekyung becoming more different. She seemed not far away as before. After Ji-chan returned, Saekyung expressed her thoughts. She wanted to try to understand Ji-chan. The bet they made earlier still counted. Ji-chan didn't expect the love lightning to reach so quickly. He was extremely excited and expressed his infatuation with Saekyung. At home at night, Ji-chan told his friends about Saekyung's changes. He gradually became immersed in the congratulations and encouragement from everyone. Eun-jaeon secretly saw this scene. The image of Saekyung in the present flashed in his mind. Saekyung in the present and the past were both different. He couldn't think carefully about the reasons why Saekyung changed. He suddenly remembered her saying that she came back because she did not want to live anymore. Eun-jaeon worried that Saekyung would do something reckless and immediately ran to her house. Eun-jaeon looked around the doors. Unexpectedly, Saekyung came out just as he was returning. Seeing Saekyung safe and sound, Eun-jaeon felt relieved, turned around, and left. Saekyung opened the door to find a rope hanging in the middle of the room. Ji-chan's mood was different from Saekyung's. The love feeling filled Ji-chan's mood with the freshness of spring. Their band also began their first official rehearsal. Eun-jaeon watched Ji-chan singing passionately. His father's face appeared in his mind. He had never thought before that his visually impaired father, ravaged by time, once had such a bright youth. After the rehearsal ended, Saekyung took the initiative to find Ji-chan. She invited the whole group to the amusement park. Eun-jaeon couldn't stand the thought of his father liking someone else, so he refused Saekyung's invitation. However, just a few steps away, he heard Ji-chan planning to go on the pirate ship ride. To prevent Ji-chan from facing any trouble, Eun-jaeon quickly turned back and asked to go with him. To protect Ji-chan and safeguard his parents' love, Eun-jaeon followed Ji-chan closely. Seeing Eun-jaeon's hostile attitude towards her, Saekyung called him aside and asked him about it. Why are you protecting Ji-chan so excessively like that? Eun-jaeon reminded her not to like Ji-chan because Ji-chan's partner was someone else. That person cherished Ji-chan more than anyone else. Unexpectedly, Eun-jaeon's sayings made Saekyung think that he liked Ji-chan. Eun-jaeon wanted to explain to Saekyung, but Ji-chan was about to slip on a banana peel beside him. Eun-jaeon, worried that Ji-chan would get hurt, rushed over and embraced him. Eun-jaeon's actions embarrassed Ji-chan in front of the person he liked. He angrily asked Eun-jaeon what his motives were. Why do you always want to prevent me? Eun-jaeon couldn't explain everything, so he could only reiterate the condition from before. That meant Eun-jaeon would always keep an eye on Ji-chan for a year. Unexpectedly, their conversation was overheard by their friends. They understood and respected Eun-jaeon and Ji-chan's decision, so they pretended not to see what had just happened. To clarify the misunderstanding clearly, before coming back home, Eun-jaeon explained to Saekyung that he truly had no feelings for Ji-chan. He also had a secret that he couldn't share with Saekyung yet. Unexpectedly, Saekyung's imagination was so vast. She suspected that Eun-jaeon liked her, so she moved closer to him. This made Eun-jaeon feel uncomfortable, causing him to turn his face away. The next day, the band started their rehearsal, and Ji-chan unexpectedly suggested changing the song. He had consulted Saekyung and received her approval. The band members also agreed, but Eun-jaeon raised his hand in protest. There was less than a month left until the stage performance. They couldn't disrupt everyone's feelings just because of Saekyung. However, Ji-chan was determined to follow Saekyung's advice. He firmly believed that Saekyung returned from abroad for him. No matter what, he would fulfill all her wishes. Eun-jaeon, angered by Ji-chan's delusions, left the band in frustration. At night, Eunjaeon fell asleep in the supermarket until his boss woke him up. Eunjaeon got up and left. Strangely, the lamp beside him suddenly flickered. The phone rang in the booth. Eunjaeon quickly answered the call. The person on the other end was the owner of the old shop, who had asked him to travel through time. Eunjaeon asked the owner to tell him how to return. But the owner told him that while he traveled back in time, the real world had changed significantly. Eunjaeon understood immediately. Saekyeong had unexpectedly returned. Those who were supposed to part ways were reunited instead. All of this was caused by him. Eunjaeon wished to fix everything and let things develop in the right way. The owner reminded him that he had already given him a hint. After saying that, he hung up. Eunjaeon immediately searched his pockets for clues. He found a leaflet introducing a guitar audition, and the audition time was tomorrow. The next day, the organizers were working hard to set up the stage. The assistant informed the owner that there would be thunderstorms in the afternoon and suggested moving the event indoors. The owner had his own ideas and insisted on making according to the first plan that he set before. Eunjaeon arrived at the venue to ask about the situation. He accidentally picked up a contestant's ticket from the ground and was mistaken for a participant, so he was invited inside. Eunjaeon participated in the electric guitar audition and was struck by lightning. After that, he was taken to the hospital. At the same moment, the phone booth marked as out of order suddenly rang. She picked up the phone. On the other end was the owner of the old shop, the same person who had sent her back in time. It turned out that Saekyeong was Eunju. Her mother had ignored her wishes and forced her to play the cello since she was little. Eunju struggled, but she still couldn't escape her mother's control. She often felt like a piece of jewelry placed in a box. Only by achieving the first prize in music competitions, only then could she earn her mother's fleeting smile and love. This was the value of her existence. Most of the time, Eunju went through those feelings of boredom and hardship alone. Only when she was with her father did she have moments of relaxation and joy. Unfortunately, her parents had divorced a long time ago. When she returned home with her mother to attend the funeral, her maternal grandfather once told her that he wanted to live in a happy family since he was young, but that wish never came true. Now, Eunju was her only family. She hoped her daughter would never leave her. Eunju nodded, understanding her mother's sentiment. At that time, she didn't know what it meant. But when she turned 18, her mother took Eunju to the instrument shop. Her mother grew increasingly disappointed with her failed marriage and shattered dreams, so she vowed to let Eunju pursue her dream of becoming a beautiful cello artist. Only then would she have something for others to envy. Eunju could only obediently obey her mother. From childhood to adulthood, she heard her mother boast countless times about her glorious youth related to Ji-chan. When drunk, her mother often expressed regret. If she hadn't married and had children, she would have surely become famous worldwide as a cello artist. Instead, now she was just a normal woman. Eunju could no longer endure living under her mother's control and shadow. In her anger, she went abroad to find her father, but she didn't expect that her father had a new family, leaving her with nowhere to go as she wandered the streets. She was almost injured by a group of thugs. Eunju cried bitterly, wondering why she was even born in this world. At that moment, her shadow split into two under the moon in the sky. In front of her was a music shop. She walked into the instrument store and sold her cello. Eunju wanted to start a new journey or simply disappear from this world. The owner treated Eunju the same way he had treated Eunjaeol. He handed her a receipt and advised her to protect it. Eunju left under the watchful eye of the owner. She never imagined that the outside world would change. She had truly traveled back to 1995, assuming the identity of Kyung, her mother. During this time, she had a good relationship with Ji-chan and the band members. Later, she received a call from the instrument seller. Eunju told the owner that she had a new idea. She wanted to bring her mother and her first love coming together. This way, her mother could live a happy life, and she herself would not have been born. At that moment, the root of all her pain was resolved. She recalled her mother's stories of her first love. The person was not only a band member but also someone who loved spicy food. Eunju then set out to find her target. She planned to treat the band members. The people in front were so hot. They were definitely not the person Eunju was looking for. In the end, only Ji-chan and Eunjaeol were the targets for her. At this point, she still misunderstood that Eunjaeol liked men, so naturally, he was also eliminated. The next day, Eunju invited Ji-chan to dinner. She tasted the spiciness of the dish. Her tongue hurt immediately, but Ji-chan didn't change his expression. This made her once again confirm that her mother's first love was Ji-chan. As Eunju prepared to carry out her plan, the image of her asking Eunjaeol if he liked her flashed in her mind. For some reason, she fell in love for Eunjaeol at that moment. As for Eunjaeol, he was under a serious rescue situation. Kai kak bacsi zok dien y tu qua Unjayol. As the doctors shocked him back to consciousness, Unjayol kept calling out for his parents. He wanted to be reunited with his parents. Meanwhile, Chong-ah, feverish on her way home, accidentally met Ji-chan, who was returning the keychain. She immediately fainted, prompting Ji-chan to rush her to the hospital. When Chong-ah woke up in the hospital, Ji-chan had written her a letter apologizing for his previous attitude. Chong-ah left the hospital directly while Ji-chan was handling the paperwork. When Ji-chan returned to the hospital room, he saw the note left by Chong-ah. Chong-ah explained about the concert ticket and the invitation letter. She just wanted to fulfill Ji-chan's wishes, unaware that there was a letter from Se Kyung written for her. That's why there was that misunderstanding. After that, Ji-chan ran to find her and invited her to dinner. Ji-chan wrote his phone number for Chong-ah and told her to contact him if she encountered any trouble. Chong-ah kam thay vo kung han. Chong-ah felt incredibly happy. The door to her heart, which had been closed, was now opening again. When they got home, Ji-chan suddenly remembered what Eun Ji-ayon had said. He said that Ji-chan must like Chong-ah. Although Ji-chan didn't know why Eun Ji-ayon said that, he still asked Chong-ah if she knew Eun Ji-ayon. Chong-ah denied that. A strange thing on the next day. The nurse discovered that Eun Ji-ayon, who was lying in the hospital room, had suddenly disappeared. Ji-chan was unaware that Eun Ji-ayon had been in an accident. At first, he thought Eun Ji-ayon was just in some trouble and would be back soon. But 2 days passed by, and there was still no sign of Eun Ji-ayon. A roommate told Ji-chan that Eun Ji-ayon had been working part-time during this time. Whether it was college homework or other jobs, he accepted them all. Ji-chan thought that Eun Ji-ayon was obsessed with money, but the roommate told the real reason to Ji-chan. That was Eun Ji-ayon, who intended to buy a new guitar for him. Eun Ji-ayon was trying to help Ji-chan shine. Because this was his last youthful moment. Ji-chan wasn't calm anymore. Since they met, Eun Ji-ayon had tutored him, helped him form a band, and kept him safe from harm. The rehearsal was approaching and no one could find Eun Ji-ayon. The other band members supported bringing in a new guitarist. But Ji-chan was determined to wait for Eun Ji-ayon. This was the gift Eun Ji-ayon had given him. He wanted to shine on stage with Eun Ji-ayon. Ji-chan uploaded information to seek for Eun Ji-ayon. Today, someone called Ji-chan and said they knew Eun Ji-ayon's whereabouts. Ji-chan. Chong-ah was about to buy a phone when she saw Ji-chan running out. She saw that and chased after Ji-chan. However, because she couldn't hear the sound, she almost got hit by a car. That's also why she lost sight of Ji-chan. When Ji-chan arrived at the agreed location, he realized that the other party was a gang of gangsters specializing in scamming money. Not only did they not know the whereabouts of Eun Ji-ayon, but they also dealt with Ji-chan and took his money. In the midst of the danger, Ji-chan heard the voice of Eun Ji-ayon. He tried to open his eyes and saw the worried face of Eun Ji-ayon very close to him. But when Ji-chan blinked, he found that Eun Ji-ayon disappeared. Ji-chan unsteadily got to his feet. Memories of Eun Ji-ayon came back again in his mind. Right now he still knew that he had lost the most important person. Ji-chan shouted Eun Ji-aon's name loudly, and at the same time, Eun Ji-ayon quietly opened his eyes. He found himself standing on the street with a guitar. Everything on the street looked really familiar. He asked a passerby what year it was. The person replied that it was now 2023. Only then did he realize that he had truly traveled back in time without any warning. Eun Ji-ayon came home in a hurry. He saw his father and older brother preparing dinner. At this moment, his mother had not yet returned home. He summarized his experiences during this time as a dream. Eun Ji-ayon told his father and brother that he didn't like his dad at 18 because he always made him worry. He spent the entire day obsessively chasing after the school goddess. His father quickly denied it and said that his wife was his first love. He never liked anyone else except from his wife. While they were talking, their mother returned, and Eun Ji-ayon wanted to tell her about this. The mother standing in front of him turned out to say Kyung. Eun Ji-ayon couldn't believe it. He remembered that the owner of the music store had told him that. While he traveled back to the past, the real world also changed. Seeing his father and Se Kyung standing next to each other, Eun Ji-ayon stepped back and shouted that it was impossible. The next moment, he abruptly opened his eyes and woke up. At that point, he realized he was still in 1995. In front of him was a strange room. Eun Ji-ayon stepped out of his room and saw a family photo hanging in the hallway. Chong-ah, the girl he once gave an umbrella to, was also in the photo. Her father was the chairman of the music company. At that moment, the son of Chong-ah's stepmother appeared and explained why Eun Ji-ayon was there. After Eun Ji-ayon was struck by lightning, the organizers realized he was not a contestant, and invited him to participate in the competition. To understand Eun Ji-aon's intentions and avoid damaging the company's reputation, he took Eun Ji-ayon home. After learning about the situation, Eun Ji-ayon wanted to leave. But to avoid future disputes, they forced him to sign a commitment. Eun Ji-yeon, feeling helpless, had no choice but to sign the agreement and leave Chong-ah's house. Eun Ji-yeon happened to meet Chong on her way home. She looked very sad. In fact, she had just chased after Ji-chan and saw him unconscious lying on the street. Chong-ah wanted to scream for help but couldn't make a sound. She looked for passers-by to help, but they didn't understand what she was trying to express. At that crucial moment, she saw Eun-ju, who was taking on the identity of Se Kai-eung. So she pulled Eun Ji-yeon over to Ji-chan. Seeing Eun Ji-yeon shouting for help and dialing the emergency number, Chong-ah felt utterly useless. As soon as she got home, she happened to run into Eun Ji-yeon right at her house. Eun Ji-yeon saw the student name tag of Chong-ah and realized that the girl in front of him was his mother. He immediately chased after her, but the security guard stopped him and wouldn't let him. Eun Ji-yeon tried to escape from the security guard and jumped into a car to tear the agreement he had just signed with his stepmother's son. He got angry and threw a punch at Eun Ji-yeon's face. Eun Ji-yeon pretended to faint and was then taken to a resting room. When his stepmother's son left, he got up and reflected on his mother's family relationships. Suddenly, there was the sound of an argument outside. The daughter of the stepmother came home and saw Chong-ah. She thought Chong-ah was blocking her way and pushed her, causing Chong-ah to fall. Seeing the watermelon key in Chong-ah's pocket, she quickly stole it away. Chong-ah rushed forward to retrieve the key. The stepmother turned around and shouted at the two of them to stop. The stepmother's daughter was the first to speak up. She lied, saying that the keychain was a gift from Se Kai-eung and insisted on taking it away from Chong-ah. The stepmother snatched the keychain and threw it on the ground. Seeing that, Chong-ah immediately shouted. While struggling, she bit her stepmother's hand, which made the woman furious and she began to scold Chong-ah harshly. She wanted to hit her again, but Eun Ji-yeon prevented her. Eun Ji-yeon used sign language to ask Chong-ah if she was hurt. His actions were prevented by his stepmother. Signal language was forbidden in this house. While they were arguing, Chong-ah's father returned. Eun Ji-yeon understood why his grandfather forbade his mother from learning sign language. The grandparent was a person who had a strong reputation. He didn't want others to know he had a disabled daughter. To change the circumstances in Chong-ah's home, Eun Ji-yeon negotiated with his grandfather. If he wanted to completely resolve the conflict regarding the strike, he had to agree to Eun Ji-yeon teaching Chong-ah sign language. After successfully convincing him, Eun Ji-yeon began teaching sign language. He told Chong-ah that his name was Eun Ji-yeon, which meant a child with a pure voice, a pure boy. This was the name his mother had given him, and Eun Ji-yeon was shocked to discover her difficult past. Thinking of this, Eun Ji-yeon felt heartbroken and couldn't hold back his tears. Meanwhile, Ji-chan was in the hospital for observation and became a source of joy for the other patients. The band members came to see Ji-chan. They decided to help distribute missing person flyers and continue searching for Eun Ji-yeon. Ji-chan told his friends about his heroic actions against the gangsters. He was also very grateful to Se Ki-eung for saving him. At that moment, Eun-ju, in the role of Se Ki-eung, also visited Ji-chan. She told him that it wasn't her who saved him, but Chong-ah. At that moment, she had seen the name tag of the partner. Ji-chan was very surprised to hear this. To thank Chong-ah for saving him, Ji-chan made a special visit to her house to express his gratitude. Chong-ah didn't meet him. She watched him through the window and wrote down his name. Just as Ji-chan was leaving, Eun Ji-yeon returned. Both missed the chance to reunite. Eun Ji-yeon wanted to know if Ki-eung in the real world had become his mother. So he called the old music store's owner, but the number was still reported as incorrect. However, Eun Ji-yeon didn't care. The next day, he returned to the phone booth and unexpectedly ran into Eun-ju there. Eun-ju was eager to find out who her mother's first love was, Eun Ji-yeon or Ji-chan. So, she invited Eun Ji-yeon out for a meal. As usual, she ordered super spicy food for Eun Ji-yeon to try. Typically, she would just put the food directly into his mouth, but Eun Ji-yeon insisted on negotiating with her, making her promise not to get close to Ji-chan anymore. However, neither of them wanted to compromise. In the end, neither achieved their goal to protect their mother, so Eun Ji-yeon chose to attend the same school as Chong-ah. His presence immediately caught the attention of the female students at the school. Eun-ju also came to find Chong-ah. She wanted to ask Chong-ah if she knew who Ki-eung's first love was. Unexpectedly, she saw Eun Ji-yeon and Chong-ah together. Eun-ju shouted and chased after them, but Eun Ji-yeon completely ignored her. He took Chong-ah straight into the school. Eun-ju tried to chase after them but was stopped by the security guard. Eun Ji-yeon shared information about Eun Ji-yeon with Ji-chan. Excited, Ji-chan decided to do whatever it took to bring Eun Ji-yeon back to the band. At the same time, Eun-ju found a school uniform in the closet that was the same as Chong-ah's. She immediately changed the school uniform and successfully entered the school. When she looked for Eun Ji-yeon, he reluctantly followed her outside. The moment Eunju took off her hat, Eun Ji-yeon's heart suddenly raced. Eunju wanted to know why Eun Ji-yeon disliked her so much. Eun Ji-yeon randomly created a reason, saying he felt angry whenever he saw her. After saying this, he turned to leave, but Eunju told him something. While they were talking, the concert titled Welcome Back, Eun Ji-yeon began to be performed. The concert catched the attention of all the classmates. Ji-chan sang passionately on stage. Seeing Eun Ji-yeon appear, he stepped off the stage and approached him. He promised to study hard in the future and strive to sing well. Everything agreed upon would be done. He just hoped Eun Ji-yeon would come back. This time, Eun Ji-yeon glanced at Chong-ah and agreed to Ji-chan's request. At the same time, a condition was set: Ji-chan was not allowed to date Se-kyung, as he already liked her. Ji-chan didn't expect that he was preparing the concert carefully for Eun Ji-yeon, but Eun Ji-yeon truly repaid his kindness by confessing to his goddess. In anger, Ji-chan hit Eun Ji-yeon, who fought back. They battled from inside the circle to outside, neither wanting to admit defeat. When security arrived, everyone quickly dispersed. In a panic, Eun Ji-yeon grabbed Eunju's hand, while Ji-chan was chased by the guards and tried to jump onto a nearby truck. However, the security staff pursued them closely. Eun Ji-yeon and Eunju hid in the pool. When alone, Eunju asked Eun Ji-yeon about his recent confession, believing he still liked Ji-chan. She thought he was using the excuse of confessing to her to break up with Ji-chan. Eun Ji-yeon confessed again that he wasn't lying. He truly liked Eunju and wished she felt the same way. Eunju ordered Eun Ji-yeon to explain why he liked her in 3 seconds. He replied that he was drawn to her beauty the first time they met. Eun Ji-yeon felt that they were destined to be together. He smiled and declared the mission accomplished. At that moment, the teacher arrived and took them to the principal's office, who was also Chong-ah's stepmother. She was the one who handled the study abroad procedures for Se-kyung, but she had not received any news that Se-kyung had returned from the US. At the same time, she felt that Se-kyung in front of her was very different from before. To confirm this, the stepmother called Se-kyung's mother's phone number. Fortunately, Eunju was clever. She vaguely remembered that her mother's family was traveling during this time. What she said was similar to a message from the other end of the phone, dispelling the stepmother's suspicions. The stepmother hung up the phone and instructed Eunju to continue attending school starting tomorrow. After that, Eun Ji-yeon spoke with Chong-ah. Chong-ah was very angry because he had confessed in public. Eun Ji-yeon chased after her to apologize, and Eunju happened to see the scene. She couldn't understand why Eun Ji-yeon had confessed to her but was secretly seeing Chong-ah. To find out if Eun Ji-yeon was her mother's first love, Eunju decided to test Eun Ji-yeon with some spicy dishes. This was an important issue in her life. Eun Ji-yeon was confused and didn't understand why she was so obsessed with it, but since it concerned Se-kyung's life, Eun Ji-yeon didn't ask any further questions. As Eun Ji-yeon brought the food, Eunju suddenly interrupted, revealing she was deeply affected by his words. Suddenly, she felt her heart racing and didn't want to try it anymore. After returning home, Eunju remembered her mother mentioning a key point. It was her mother's first love who had performed a song for her during the spring festival. From that she realized that she always liked that person. Eunju decided to maintain her indecisive attitude with Ji-chan and Eun Ji-yeon to see who would be invited to the anniversary celebration. Eun Ji-yeon returned home and continued tutoring Chong-ah. However, she threw something at him and walked away. Eun Ji-yeon picked up the item from the ground and discovered it was a diary that Chong-ah had written about her love for Ji-chan. Eun Ji-yeon suddenly realized that Chong-ah had secretly loved Ji-chan. He couldn't help but feel upset that his plan to confess his love without permission had hurt his mother. While Eun Ji-yeon was deep in thought, he received a call from Ji-chan. After careful consideration, Ji-chan decided to compete fairly with Eun Ji-yeon. Finally, they have reached an agreement. No one was allowed to meet the strange vehicle during this time. They would compete on stage during the school's anniversary celebration. The loser voluntarily concedes, and the two temporarily reconcile. Eun Ji-yeon and Ji-chan went home to visit their grandmother. Grandma asked Eun Ji-yeon to continue tutoring Ji-chan. Grandma was worried that Ji-chan will follow in his father's footsteps, not studying hard and causing trouble outside all day. Later, Eun Ji-yeon learned that Ji-chan's father had a bad habit of gambling when he was young. He would yell at the grandma just to get money. Eun Ji-yeon couldn't stand seeing her worry about Ji-chan. He promised to return quickly to tutor Ji-chan after finishing his work. Eun Ji-yeon wanted to check if Ji-chan was injured and needed hospitalization because of him. After confirmation, he immediately checked Ji-chan from head to toe to see if he was injured, and whether Ji-chan's condition was affected. Once everything was confirmed to be normal with Ji-chan, he finally felt relieved. On the way home, Eun Ji-yeon recalled that his father once said, He met his mother in a sign language class when he was 20. Currently, Ji-chan and Chong-ah are both 18 years old. Eun-jian's presence serves as a connection for their parents. Eun-jian will remove the obstacle posed by Se Ky-eung. At the same time, he needs to investigate the accident involving his father and prevent it from happening. The next day, Eun-ju appeared stunning at school. Because Eun-jian had agreed with Ji-chan that no one should meet Eun-ju, he turned around and ran away. Eun-ju felt that he had just confessed his feelings to her a few days ago, but now he was intentionally avoiding her. Eun-ju thought Eun-jian was teasing her feelings, so she kept chasing after him. They chased after each in the schoolyard. Ji-chan received news from a classmate. He wanted to rush over and settle the score with Eun-jian. Suddenly, they received an order to leave the rehearsal room. Ji-chan clung to the teacher's leg and begged to wait until the school anniversary was over before moving, but the head teacher had let them go away. Band members were finding the new secret. They called Eun-jian and gave him the address. Everyone also told Eun-jian that this was a secret and he could not share with anyone except the band members. Eun-jian felt that the opportunity to stand alongside his parents had finally arrived. Therefore, he excitedly took Chong-ah to the new rehearsal room, but he was not expecting that the moment he opened the door, he would see Ji-chan and Eun-ju laughing together. The two accused each other of bringing outsiders in. Eun-jian was very angry. He lied that he brought Chong-ah here because he wanted her to be the costume designer. Ji-chan wouldn't back down. He suggested that Eun-ju could take on the role of the band's photographer. To give their parents some private space, Eun-jian lied about wanting to check Eun-ju's photography skills and then pulled her away. Ji-chan used the sign language he learned before to talk with her. Chong-ah showed him her paintings, and Ji-chan praised her artwork enthusiastically. But when he flipped through the pages and saw himself in a drawing, she reacted and quickly snatched her sketchbook back. Eun-jian and Eun-ju rode together on an electric scooter. Unfortunately, the scooter ran out of battery on the way. As night fell, they started to argue and blame each other. Eun-jian took off his jacket and draped it over Eun-ju. He also asked Eun-ju if she had any feelings for him. Eun-jian was confident that he could win her heart. Eun-ju fell for Eun-jian's charm but soon snapped back to reality. She asked Eun-jian to sing a song for her. Eun-jian hesitated, and to provoke him, she said that if it were Ji-chan, he would definitely fulfill her request. Ji-chan also said he would sing for her at the anniversary. Just after saying this, Eun-jian began to sing. Eun-ju was captivated by his voice and couldn't pull herself away. Eun-jian looked closely at her face. He couldn't contain his racing heart. That night, he slowly moved closer to Eun-ju, intending to kiss her. Suddenly, the face of the middle-aged Se Ki-eung from the future flashed in his mind. Eun-jian was so scared that he immediately sat up straight. Eun-jian thought about the time when he helped his brother resolve his romantic issues. His brother had once told him that sometimes, all you need to do is follow your heart and not think about anything else. Thinking of this, Eun-jian could no longer control his feelings for Eun-ju. He kissed her. Afterward, Eun-jian felt a bit awkward. The situation was now completely out of control, but he couldn't deny his feelings for Eun-ju. It wasn't just to unite their parents, it was genuine love from his heart. That night, Ji-chan saw himself in her painting. He asked her if she liked him. Chong-ah shyly confessed her feelings. Ji-chan wanted to clarify that he already had someone he liked, but he also worried that she would be upset. As he hesitated, she handed him her sketchbook and ran away. Ji-chan opened the book. What Chong-ah wanted to say was drawn inside. She knew Ji-chan only liked Eun-ju, but that didn't stop her from liking him. The two could still be friends. After Eun-jian returned home, she eagerly pulled him inside. She had learned the sign language gestures that Ji-chan had performed and asked Eun-jian what they meant. Then she excitedly told Eun-jian that she wanted to learn sign language. Taking the opportunity, her grandfather made a request. If Eun-jian couldn't teach her sign language within a month, her grandfather would let him go away. Eun-jian promised he would complete the task. Before leaving, he also asked her grandfather to buy her a messaging device. This way, she could communicate with the outside world. Her grandfather didn't understand why Eun-jian was always thinking about her. When the two negotiated for the first time, he had asked Eun-jian what he would give in return if he agreed to his conditions. Eun-jian thought of his mother's smile at that time and replied that he would show him his daughter's smile. Not a fake smile, but a smile from a happy heart. Thinking about this, her grandfather took out a photo of their three-person family. Since the divorce, he never saw his daughter smile. He couldn't help feeling a mix of emotions inside. Unexpectedly, her stepmother witnessed this scene. She feared her husband would love his daughter more again, so she immediately felt a dislike for Eun-jian. The next day, the stepmother called Eun Jian to her office and demanded that he stop teaching sign language to Chong-ah. Eun Jian Lin Noira Bo Mat that Eun Jian then revealed her true nature. The reason the stepmother bullied her by any means was that she feared the chairman would choose Chong-ah as his successor, so her own daughter would have nothing. The stepmother angrily warned Eun Jian to stay away, or she would not hesitate to take strong action. To warn him, she made Eun Jian clean up the school. This made Eun Jian extremely angry. He also wanted to escape and return to his own world, but there was no way back. Suddenly, the sky was covered with dark clouds. Next came the sound of a strange ringtone. Eun Jian followed the noise to the dressing room. He found the phone in the store and the caller was the owner of the shop. Thinking back to the previous times, he had only played tricks on Eun Jian without providing any useful information. Eun Jian wanted to hang up. Unexpectedly, the boss said that someone had come to help him. He would need to find out for himself who was there to help him, and why that person wanted to help him. First, he had to assist the helper in resolving their issue. After finishing the call with the shop owner, Eun Jian received a call and went to meet Ji-chan. Ji-chan asked him if Eun Ju's filming skills passed the test from yesterday. But what Eun Jian thought of was the moment he kissed Eun Ju. He also asked Ji-chan if he had seen her work. What Ji-chan thought of was Chong-ah's shy expression when she admitted that she liked him. At the same time, Ji-chan recognized her top-notch painting skills. That night, Eun Jian arrived at Eun Ju's house. He wanted her to be the photographer for the band. As soon as he saw her, Eun Jian noticed Eun Ju's pale face. He anxiously asked about her condition. It turned out that this morning, when Eun Ju went to school, she had seen the electric scooter that Eun Jian left behind. He also left a note filled with caring words that made Eun Ju very happy. But this happiness didn't last long. Because when she arrived at school, she saw Eun Jian laughing and joking with Eun Ju. The relationship between the two seemed to have a special closeness. This distracted Eun Ju during class. She began to speculate about the relationship between the two. It wasn't until the teacher asked her to play a cello piece that she snapped back to reality, and Eun Ju couldn't refuse. But as she picked up the cello, memories of attending a classmate's funeral resurfaced, and her mother had told her not to dwell on it. She said that she had experienced too many deaths of friends. Thinking about this, she couldn't play any tune at all, so she had gone to the restroom to escape. In a place where no one was around, Eun Ju breathed into a plastic bag to stabilize her emotions. Her life was controlled by her mother. This made Eun Ju feel extremely suffocated. She hurriedly rummaged through her suitcase for her medication and glanced at the rope she always kept in her room. Just then, Eun Jian arrived. Eun Ju remembered that he had accompanied her to the currency exchange. She had said to Eun Jian that she had sold the guitar and she wanted to start her own journey. Eun Jian heard that Eun Ju had similar experiences when he went to the market, thinking she could help him. He quickly asked her where she had sold the cello. Eun Ju replied that it had been sold in America. This temporarily dispelled Eun Jian's doubts. Seeing Eun Ju feeling down, Eun Jian followed her to the theater. Eun Ju sat alone, crying. Eun Jian comforted her, urging her not to think too deeply and to view her future at middle age as her present future. He also told Eun Ju that in the future, she would have a beautiful daughter and would grow old gracefully and elegantly. She could even change the fate of a young man. Although she didn't believe his words, Eun Jian had helped her calm down. Meanwhile, Ji-chan went to the bookstore to buy sign language books and coincidentally ran into Chong-ah. Chong-ah designed the clothing logo for the band, which featured a painting of a watermelon. Chong-ah greatly admired a sick artist who used the watermelon painting to fight against her own fate. There was a phrase in the painting that always encouraged Chong-ah, "Viva la vida," meaning long live life. Chong-ah taught Ji-chan her sign language. He studied hard with a beaming smile on his face. When Chong-ah returned home, she saw the messaging device her father had specifically bought for her. She wanted to send a message to Ji-chan. The joy and happiness on her face were unhidden. Her grandfather was watching this scene from outside. Finally, he believed what Eun Jian had said. A daughter's smile was the most precious treasure in the world. The next day, Ji-chan shared the story of the watermelon artist and decided to name the band Watermelon. Everyone began to discuss the name. In the end, Ji-chan gathered everyone's opinions. An excellent name was unanimously agreed upon: Sparkling Watermelon. At the same time, Chong-ah was busy designing clothes non-stop. Eun Jian also sparked the fighting spirit by starting to take photos of the band. A group of young people was heading towards a bright dream, but they cannot imagine that this performance would result in one member getting seriously injured. With the Chong-ah and Eun Gun's attempts, the band members finally wore their watermelon uniforms and posed for photos to create a poster for the band. While taking photos, Chong-ah helped Ji-chan fix his hair, and Eun Jian couldn't help but smile at the scene. Coincidentally, Eun Ji-an saw Ji-chan smiling and captured the moment with his camera. The students at school were very curious about whom the school goddess would choose, even placing bets on the matter. The girls hoped Eun Ji-an would choose Ji-chan, leaving the handsome Eun Ji-an available for everyone. After all, every girl wished to have a perfect boyfriend like Eun Ji-an. At that moment, Eun Ji-an and his friends were playing basketball on the court. He was the star scorer, every girls cheered and admired him. At the end of the match, they gathered and gave him presents. Eun Ji-an happily smiled while accepting the gifts. Seeing his smile with other girls made Ji-chan feel angry. She criticized and threatened Eun Ji-an. Afterwards she left away. Eun Ji-an's shout from behind made Ji-chan quickly turn back. Eun Ji-an found the food very spicy and frantically searched for water. This made Ji-chan realize that Eun Ji-an couldn't eat spicy food. Perhaps he was not her mother's first love. To celebrate the band's upcoming performance, the man at the old shop, who often provided them with a practice space, treated them to grilled meat. The members ate a lot and were very excited about the upcoming performance. Ji-chan's good friend, Ma Zhu, had discovered his own talent. Compared to standing on stage, he preferred calling on people to invest in advertising and negotiating deals. Ma Zhu seemed to have found his own strength and happily shared it. If that day ever came, he wanted to collaborate most with Zhang Jin. Hearing this, Eun Ji-an suddenly remembered Zhang Jin's interview in 2023. At that time, Zhang Jin and Ma Zhu had been working together for many years. In the interview, Zhang Jin talked about the former members of his band. During the anniversary rehearsal, a member had an accident and was seriously injured, causing the band to break up. The only ones who continued to pursue their passion were him and Ma Zhu. When he thought about this, Eun Gun immediately understood. If it weren't for his presence, Zhang Jin would be the member of this band. And the accident that Zhang Jin mentioned actually happened. In other words, the accident that caused his father to become visually impaired would occur during tomorrow's rehearsal. Eun Ji-an, horrified, glanced at Ji-chan and quickly ran to the pool to make a call, asking the owner of that store. But he could not connect at all. Ji-chan and the members of the Nani music team could not know had happened next. When they parted ways at the intersection, one of the members, Hyun-jun, seemed to be hiding something. It turned out that Hyun-jun had once been the right-hand man of a gang leader. But later, he didn't want to live that kind of life anymore, so he voluntarily left the group. This stirred up the leader's hatred, and he was determined to take revenge on Hyun-jun. A few days ago, Hyun-jun saved a high school student who was being bullied by the gang. Little did he know that such an act would only anger the gang leader even more. The opponent might deal Hyun-jun a fatal blow at the moment he is most arrogant. To prevent an accident, Eun Ji-an begged Ji-chan to cancel tomorrow's rehearsal. If Ji-chan insisted on participating, he just needed to not appear. But Ji-chan had prepared for a long time. He didn't want to give up any opportunity to stand on stage with his teammates. But Ji-an still tried to persuade him. Ji-chan suspected that he had ulterior motives. He always wanted to interrupt Ji-chan's good deeds. So no matter what, Ji-chan was determined to participate in tomorrow's rehearsal. Ji-an was desperate. He had no choice but to ask for help from Eun Ji-oh. Eun-ju also wanted to know why he was doing this. But she noticed that Ji-an was hiding something, so she didn't press him further. She asked Ji-an to agree to 2 conditions. First, when the time is right, Eun Ji-oh must tell her the secret he is hiding. Second, after everything was settled, he should walk the movie with her. Ji-an absolutely agreed. Early the next morning, Eun-ju used the excuse of taking personal photos to invite Ji-chan to a small island. Ji-chan was worried that he wouldn't be able to make it to the rehearsal at 3 p.m. She promised that the photo shoot would finish before that time. After hearing that, he felt relieved. When they arrived, Ji-chan felt delighted to be alone with his idol. But unexpectedly, the person who appeared was Eun Ji-an. He admitted that his purpose was to prevent Ji-chan from participating in today's rehearsal. Now they had to wait until 6 p.m. for the boat to return. But Ji-chan was determined to get back before 3 p.m., even if he had to rent a boat. To make Ji-chan change his mind, Eun Ji-an did not hesitate to say that he came from the future, and he was Ji-chan's son from the future. Even Eun Ji-an knew Ji-chan's future fate. Ji-chan would be injured due to this today rehearsal. This accident would change his life. Therefore, Gun had to prevent that from happening. Ji-chan felt that what he was hearing was surreal. He thought Gun had a mental issue, turning the plot of a novel into reality. Ji-chan was determined to leave. Gun threatened Ji-chan. If he insisted on leaving, Gun would jump into the sea right away. Ji-chan thought Gun was just joking, until a loud noise came from behind. Only then did he realize that what Eun Ji-an said was true. Ji-chan immediately jumped into the water to save Eun Ji-oh. He couldn't bear the thought of Eun Ji-an harming himself, so he agreed to miss the rehearsal. Hearing these words, Ji-an finally felt relieved. At that moment, the remaining members were trying to buy time with the organizers. They believed that Gun and Ji-chan would definitely arrive. However, the organizers still cancelled their rehearsal status, and everyone was pulled off the stage. Just as they left, the lighting equipment above suddenly fell. At this moment, Eun Geo and Ji-chan also came back. When Eun Ji-an walked to the door, he suddenly remembered the promise to watch a movie with Eun Ju. He hurriedly ran to her house. They held hands as they walked to the cinema. While chatting, Eun Gun casually mentioned Squid Game. Eun Ji-an was confused because the game hadn't appeared yet in 1995. Just then, the sound of a text message interrupted his thoughts. Eun Gun checked the message and received news that Ji-chan and the others arrived at the rehearsal. Eun Ji-an went to the rehearsal in a hurry. He hoped to prevent the accident from happening in time. It turned out that after Ji-chan returned, the band members had detained him for asking him. At that moment, his grandmother asked Ji-chan to deliver dumplings to her friend, who was now a school guard. Quickly, the band bribed the guard with a plate of dumplings to get the key to the rehearsal room. They wanted to have their own rehearsal. Ji-chan and the three others sang sincerely on stage. Just then, the gang leader unexpectedly arrived with a group of people. The accident in the afternoon was not a coincidence, it had been arranged by the gang leader. Fortunately, Eun Ji-an and Ji-chan were absent, so the members escaped the disaster. The thugs were approaching and they started to fight each other. In the fight, Ji-chan swiftly took down many others. Seeing this, the gang leader grabbed a bat from behind and struck Ji-chan on the head. Ji-chan suddenly felt dizzy. Eun Ji-an rushed and saw that Ji-chan had been injured. Ji-an completely lost his mind. He grabbed the gang leader by the collar and warned him not to touch Ji-chan. Just then, the police arrived, and the gang leader quickly fled with his men. Eun Ji-an rushed over and picked Ji-chan up, asking if he could still hear what Eun Geo was saying. Ji-chan replied, "I can hear you clearly." After ensuring that his father was okay, Eun Geo finally let go of his worries. Everyone cleaned up the rehearsal room, then went to the hot spring to wash away all the dirt. After bathing, the skincare routines of Gun and Ji-chan were exactly the same. Along with Gun's actions to prevent himself from having an accident, everything made Ji-chan suspicious. Perhaps the two truly had a father-son relationship. With his fears resolved, Gun lied that his parents didn't allow him to play in the band. So he chose to run away from home. Recently, his parents found out about the rehearsal and planned to force him to study abroad. So Eun Gun had no choice but to cancel the rehearsal. Once Ji-chan believed that was the truth, he had no further questions. Then Eun Geo suddenly remembered that he had left Eun Du alone at the cinema yesterday. He hurried to Eun Du's house to beg for forgiveness. Due to her experiences from childhood to adulthood, Eun Du hated being abandoned. Last night, she experienced that feeling again. She couldn't forgive Eun Geo for his actions. At that moment, Eun Ji-an's spirits were low. He forced himself to cheer up. Now his mission was still incomplete. He wanted to reconcile with his parents. Gun returned home, but his stepmother ordered him to move out immediately. Fortunately, his grandfather returned just in time. He scolded the stepmother and extended the original agreement he had signed with Eun Ji-an. He decided to let Gun stay for another month. But the condition was that Gun had to smile in front of his grandfather. The next day, Eun Ji-an and Chong-ah met with Eun Ju. Eun Ji-an ran after her to explain. He even wanted to share the secret of his time travel. But Eun Ju told him about her parents' divorce at a very young age. She thought she was a loved child. But later, she realized that her father was good to her because he didn't want to be seen as someone who abandoned his children in others' eyes. Her mother treated her like an accessory to embellish her life. She hated being someone else's puppet or trophy. Now, Eun Ji-an was exactly that kind of person in her eyes. Gun couldn't argue with that. He wanted to know if Eun Ju had chosen Ji-chan. After listening to Eun Gun's words, Eun Ju left without looking back. Chong-ah always focused on the Eun Ju's choices. She had thought that Ju would choose Eun Ji-an without hesitation. But Eun Ju was angry, so she went against her heart and said that she would choose Ji-chan. Before going on stage to perform, the Watermelon Band began to go everywhere inviting the audience. Ji-chan saw her in the car and rushed over excitedly. Chong-ah specially came here to give gifts to Ji-chan. It was a broken guitar she made herself. Ji-chan happily kept inviting her to watch the show. She nodded, but her heart was saying goodbye to Ji-chan. She knew that after tonight Ji-chan would belong to Eun Du, so there was no reason for her to stay with Ji-chan anymore. Ji-chan received her assurance and left happily. He didn't know that Chong-ah burst into tears after turning to leave. At this time, Eun Ju also appeared in front of the band members. Everyone cheers and plays games around Eun Ju. Eun Ju laughed and joked with everyone but deliberately ignored Ji-an. Ji-an felt uncomfortable looking at Eun Ju smiling happily in the sun. Ji-an's heart was out of control again. The clock was counting down. The excited members only had Ji-an who was not happy. As for the current plan, if he wanted Ji-chan and Eun Ju to break up, he can only win against Ji-chan on stage. so he told Ji-chan to fight a real battle with him. The official performance has officially begun. Ji-chan's soulful voice and Eun-ji-an's exceptional guitar skills had the audience cheering enthusiastically. Eun-ju was shocked when she heard her father's name. Later, she learned that her father had also been a member of a band when he was young. Thinking back to what her mother said about the uniqueness of first love, she suddenly realized that her mother's first love was not Ji-chan or Eun-ji-an, but actually her father when he was young. Upon discovering the truth, Eun-ju couldn't help but be surprised. She sat on the steps and cried. At that moment, the uncle from the music store, who had come to watch the performance, noticed her and called out to Se-kyung. It turned out that the owner of the music store was Eun-ju's biological grandfather when he was young. He was her grandpa right now. However, Eun-ju had never met her grandfather, so she thought he had mistaken her for someone else. The performance of the Watermelon Band has reached its final stop. Ji-chan announced the final song dedicated to a special girl. But when he looked down at the audience, he couldn't see the person he was looking for. He quickly regained his composure and ensured the performance ended successfully. Eun-ji-an wanted to know why Eun-ju left in the middle of the performance, so he went to find her right after the show. The others had dinner together. Ji-chan always seemed lost in thought. His teammates thought he was sad because Eun-ju left without saying goodbye. But what troubled Ji-chan was that Chong-ah didn't come. Ji-chan wanted to know what had happened to Chong-ah, so he sent her fax after fax. He said he would wait for her downstairs and hoped to see her. Chong-ah went outside, thinking the performance had ended and that Ji-chan had gone to Eun-ju, to avoid feeling defeated in the corner like a wounded wolf. She had said many hurtful things against her own wishes. Ji-chan wanted her to admit her feelings for him. So he asked her why she had been helping him during this time. Why did she want the two of them to be friends? Why did she say she liked him? Chong-ah was afraid that if she stayed longer and pretended to be indifferent, she would be defeated. So she handed Ji-chan a note with a few lines written on it. She decided to bury her unforgettable secret love. Chong-ah cried out in pain, while Ji-chan read and reread the note she had given him. She wrote that she hoped they would never meet again, as they came from different worlds. Looking at the broken watermelon guitar pick on his chest, Ji-chan felt bittersweet and sad. At that moment, Eun-ji-an was waiting for Eun-ju to return. He apologized to her once again for his actions. Right now Eun-ju has found the answer. Thinking back on what she had done during this time, it must have caused a lot of trouble for Eun-ji-an. She turned to Eun-ji-an and told him that she would not choose either of the two boys. In the future, they wouldn't need to see each other again. After all, she and Eun-ji-an would be in two different worlds. Eun-ji-an was filled with disappointment. On his way home, he heard the familiar music coming from the old family store. He walked to the store, then sat down and voiced his thoughts. The owner listened to the concerns and feelings of Eun-ji-an and Eun-ju. He then told Eun-ji-an that it was love. Eun-ji-an smiled bitterly. Simply put, there was no way to bridge the divide. From different worlds, people of different ages fell in love with each other. The owner of the old family store told him that love knows no boundaries and to follow his heart. When Eun-ji-an got home, he accidentally found out that Eun-ju was about to return to the US. To stop Eun-ju from leaving, Eun-ji-an ran out into the rain to catch a taxi. At that moment, Eun-ji-an finally understood what it felt like to love someone. After that, Eun-ju hurried to the airport but was stopped. She wanted to return to the US to confirm whether her mother's first love was her father, but she realized she couldn't find her way back. Eun-ju sat alone in the rain, crying loudly. At that moment, Eun-ji-an suddenly appeared. Eun-ju cried as she complained that she was afraid she would never return. Eun-ji-an promised to find a way to help her, no matter what happened. Eun-ji-an also said that they came from different worlds. But that didn't matter, what mattered was who you are. So let's stay each other. Eun-ji-an successfully held on to Eun-ju. When he took Eun-ju home, she fell asleep on his shoulder. Eun-ji-an gently asked the driver to take 2 more laps until Eun-ju woke up. When he grabbed the suitcase, Eun-ji-an noticed that the name written on it wasn't Se-kyung but Eun-ju. He thought he was seeing things and didn't pay it any mind. Before parting ways, Eun-ju invited Eun-ji-an to her house for instant noodles. Eun-ju carried her suitcase upstairs. The suitcase accidentally rolled down. The Bluetooth earbuds fell out of the case. Eun-ji-an accidentally saw something that didn't belong to 1995, which made him momentarily confused. Eun-ju went to cook instant noodles in the kitchen while Eun-ji-an helped her bring the luggage into the room. He saw a large inscription on the wall in the room. Band members that my mother cherished back then. Eun-ji-an contemplated the meaning of this inscription. He accidentally knocked the bottle of tranquilizers off the table onto the floor. Eun-ji-an picked up the bottle of medication. At that moment, Eun-ju's voice echoed from downstairs. It turned out that, as a newcomer to the kitchen, she wasn't used to cooking. Eun-ji-an then helped Eun-ju make delicious pancakes. They ate and laughed together. After the meal, Eun-ju confirmed that Eun-jeon had promised to help her find her way home, and she wanted to know if that was true. Eun-jeon misunderstood her request about helping Eun-ju return to the US and agreed to her request, but it would take a lot of time, as this way he could be by her side longer. Eun-jeon came back home. He accidentally noticed 2 moons appearing in the sky. At the same time, the old music store's owner called. He said that the journey nearly came to an end. The next time the 2 moons appeared, the door connecting the 2 worlds would be opened. That was his only chance to return to 2023. The next day, Eun-ju specially came to meet Ji-chan. First of all, she apologized for leaving in the middle of the performance. Eun-ju intended to tell him that she had made her choice. To her surprise, as soon as she opened her mouth, Ji-chan interrupted her. In the past few days, he had noticed that Eun-ju liked Eun-jeon. Now that he heard Eun-ju's confession, he felt a sense of relief in his heart. Hon Ton Bui Bu Dien Ky Nim completing the anniversary performance meant that the band would be disbanded. Ji-chan seemed not to give up. He didn't expect happiness to come so suddenly like that. The principal called the members to his office. He asked them to represent the school in the upcoming band competition. He also ordered the band to compose a song to defeat the principal's longtime rival. The members immediately shared the good news with Eun-jeon. Eun-jeon seemed worried. He was struggling with how to address Eun-ju's feelings for him with Ji-chan. Eun-jeon took the initiative to call Ji-chan to confess. But Ji-chan mentioned that Eun-ju had come to find him and confessed that Ji-chan was also a mature person, can understand what was happening, and still wanted to be good brothers with Eun-jeon. Hearing that, Eun-jeon felt completely relieved. He was proud that his 18-year-old father was cooler than he had imagined. After returning home, Eun-jeon invited Chong-ah to continue being the band's designer, but she declined. She knew that Eun-jeon had been trying to connect her with Ji-chan during this time. She didn't want to receive another help from others. She wanted to stand on her own way. Eun-jeon looked at his mother with relief. He had to admit that his 18-year-old mother was becoming stronger. Everything was going in the right direction. It was a pity that he didn't have much time left to stay here. While Eun-jeon was cleaning the school pool, he suddenly felt sad about having to return to 2023. He accidentally ran into Eun-ju, who was skipping class. It turned out that the teacher had asked Eun-ju to play the xylophone. But Eun-ju couldn't overcome her inner fear, so she decided to escape away. Eun-jeon didn't persuade her to face the problems. Instead, he pulled Eun-ju away with him. The two snuck out and joyfully played on the streets like an ordinary couple on a date. After a great day, Eun-jeon took Eun-ju come back home. Before leaving, Eun-jeon took out the bottle of tranquilizers and asked Eun-ju if there was something difficult for her to say. Eun-ju once again recalled the time when her mother used her as a performing tool. Performing on the xylophone at that time was a painful thing for her. It made her lose her sense of self for a brief moment on stage. Since then, she relied on medicine to sleep. Eun-jeon wanted her to show her own feelings. He also disclosed his own feelings inside. Eun-jeon wouldn't force her to pretend to be happy. He just hoped that occasionally he could be her prescription. When she got home, she opened the new bottle of tranquilizers. She realized that they were colorful candies inside. Eun-ju had eaten a candy. It was a sweetness she had never experienced before. On the other hand, Ji-chan wanted to personally invite her to join in the creative run. Just like the faxes he sent, which were always retracted and crumpled. Ji-chan looked at the crumpled papers scattered all over the room. He still didn't have the courage to express his own feelings. The next day, Ji-chan accidentally saw her walking down the street and ran after her. He saw a car approaching from behind Chong-ah. Ji-chan quickly ran over and asked the driver to wait a moment. He waited until Chong-ah passed safely before letting the driver go. After that, he hurriedly ran after her and saw her feeding a stray cat. Chong-ah also speaks gently to the stray cat using sign language. Then, he saw her seriously painting in the art studio. The sun shone down on the girl in front of him, resembling a pure angel, making it impossible to look away. In the convenience store, she was approached by a mischievous boy while she was eating. After realizing that she couldn't hear him, he became even more ruthless and wanted to tease her. She felt so scared. Just then, Ji-chan appeared and taught him a lesson. Sao du, hai ben de den don tsong. After that, both sides went to the police station. Because the testimonies were inconsistent, the police couldn't let Ji-chan in, and she was allowed to leave. When Ji-chan's grandmother arrived, the police informed her that they could only take the 2 children home after finding a witness to the incident. Grandmother quickly found the person who witnessed the incident and successfully got Chong-ah and Ji-chan out of the police station. Seeing that Ji-chan fell for Chong-ah, she told him that he needed to distinguish between liking and showing empathy. Never hurt someone because of your empathy. Ji-chan listened to her. The next day, Ji-chan called Eun-jeon and asked him why young Ji-yeon was at home but couldn't protect her. After that, Eun Ji-yeon knew that Chong-ah had encountered a bad person on the street. Ji-chan asked young Ji-yeon to make up for his mistakes and help him ask Chong-ah out. At that moment, Chong-ah was considering whether or not to tell Ji-chan. She rejected him because she wanted Ji-chan to be with Eun-ju. While she was thinking, Chong-ah received a message from young Ji-yeon. He asked her to go to the rehearsal room. Otherwise, Ji-chan would find that mischievous boy to solve the problem. Chong-ah hurried to the rehearsal room. She realized that only Ji-chan was in the room. Ji-chan finally revealed his own feelings and wrote it on the diary. First, he said that she was the one who wanted to be his friend, the one who had confessed her feelings to him. Ji-chan planned to sing a song for Chong-ah on the school's celebration. As a result, she didn't show up, so Ji-chan had no choice but to sing for her right there. After that, Ji-chan stood on stage and sang, using sign language to express his feelings. This was a one-of-a-kind song in the world, dedicated solely to the girl in his heart. Chong-ah couldn't control the overwhelming emotions rising within her. She came nearer and hugged him. The two hearts finally drew closer and leaned on each other. Eun Ji-yeon watched the scene from outside and smiled gently. His original purpose for coming here was finally achieved. The next day, the band members participated together in a creative camp. Eun Ji-yeon and Eun-ju, along with Ji-chan and Chong-ah, appeared before everyone. The young people began their brave journey to pursue their dreams. On the train, the band members gathered around Ji-chan and Chong-ah to learn sign language. Eun-ju used to be the idol of the school, but now no one admired her anymore. Eun Ji-yeon immediately promised Eun-ju that he would treat her well in the future. Eun-ju told Eun Ji-yeon that she had decided to step out of the shadows and live a truly happy life. At the same time, Eun-ju wanted Eun Ji-yeon to be by her side at all times. After saying that, she stood up and walked into the restroom. Eun Ji-yeon heard the sound of his mobile phone vibrating. It was a missed call from his boss. He picked up the phone and moved to a spot with better reception. At the same time, Eun-ju also heard the sound of a mobile phone ringing in the restroom. She was surprised to see the mobile phone she had thrown into the trash can. Eun-ju immediately answered the phone. On the other end was the owner of the old shop. The owner told her that when two moons appeared in the sky, the two worlds would be connected. That was the moment she had to return. If she didn't go back, she would be stuck here forever. Then the owner informed her of some urgent news. She had a companion who would return with her. He also mentioned that this person might be very close to her. Eun-ju wanted to ask more questions but realized her phone had lost signal. To find a signal, she took her mobile phone and found the way. To her surprise, she bumped into Eun Ji-yeon, who was also holding his mobile phone. The time travelers the owner mentioned and the companions he referred to were them. It was quite a coincidence when Ji-chan arrived and saw the smartphones in their hands. Coincidentally, Ji-chan came to see something new. Eun Ji-yeon quickly pulled Eun-ju off the train to avoid Ji-chan, who was coming closer. They sat each other and exchanged things together. Eun Ji-yeon talked about being the son of Ji-chan and Chong-ah. He came here to bring his parents closer together while also preventing his father from encountering incidents. Eun-ju confessed that she was the daughter of Saek-young. She came here because of her mother's first love. She wanted to prevent her parents from being together. After explaining in detail, the two realized they were the same age, and they were caught up in the fighting between Mr. Sae-teo and Ms. Gak in matters of love. Ji-chan arranged for a ride to take the two of them to the camping site. It turned out that the person who arrived was the uncle of the old shop owner. He was actually the biological father of Saek-young. Eun-ju saw him but didn't recognize him, so she greeted him warmly. On the way, the uncle just kept glancing at them in the rearview mirror. When Eun-ju caught him looking, he quickly turned back to focus on the road. She remembered the last time this uncle saw her, he had called out Saek-young's name. She immediately had a feeling that he definitely knew her mother. After gathering all the members, they brainstormed to come up with lyrics for the song. Eun-ju came up with a new idea. She had read a snippet of the song's melody from 2023. Eun Ji-yeon was so scared that he quickly pulled her away and urged her not to act strangely. Chong-ah was painting alone by the riverside. Ji-chan was afraid she would be sad, so he brought a kitten to play with her. Chong-ah wanted to name the kitten based on its facial features. This made it easier to perform gestures, sign language, and the nickname she gave Ji-chan was Shiny Voice, because she could feel the sweetness of his singing voice. Chong-ah even spoke gently to the stray cat using sign language. Chong-ah also had her own things to do. She didn't feel lonely or feel strange to everything. Ji-chan felt incredibly moved hearing her say that. He couldn't disclose his own feelings. With Chong-ah's encouragement, Ji-chan felt inspired. After discussing with the band, they completed the song composition in just one night. The next day, the members began rehearsing the new song. The beautiful melody and profound lyrics expressed a dream that belonged only to them. After the rehearsal was complete, the boys and girls had fun on the beach. The scenery was surrounded by the friendship. Love and family bonds created a beautiful and harmonious picture. At mealtime, the owner invited them to enjoy some grilled meat. The others received one serving, but Eun-ju got two. It seemed not to be fair. The next day, the creative camp, lasting 2 days and 1 night, came to an end. Ji-chan encouraged everyone that on competition day, they had to defeat their opponents and secure first place. Eun-ji-an wanted to go home with Chong-ah but was pulled away by Eun-ju. She winked at him in order to create an opportunity for their parents to be alone. Ji-chan brought Chong-ah to the front of her house. Both reluctantly had to say goodbye. Ji-chan told Chong-ah that if anyone bullied her again, she should tell him immediately. If there were only public phones around, she just needed to tap the receiver twice, 3 times, and then twice again. That way, he would know what it meant. Chong understood what he said and did the same things like him. At that moment, Ji-chan gently said goodbye to her. But just as he turned around, Chong-ah's stepmother suddenly saw the two of them communicating using sign language. She also learned about the fight between the two of them and the other students. The stepmother angrily scolded Chong-ah for not obeying. After that, she prepared to give Chong-ah a lesson. Chong-ah, not wanting to endure it any longer, stood up to her stepmother and warned her. At home, no one disobeyed her because they were servants, slaves bought with her money. Chong-ah quickly ran to her room and sent a message to Ji-chan for help, but her stepmother tore it to shreds. It was similar to the painful letter she had written to her father. Memories of her childhood flooded her mind. At that moment, she ran downstairs and shouted for her father. But her stepmother had deceived her father, claiming it was a way to teach her to speak. Only in this way could Chong-ah make a sound. Her father believed her stepmother and simply stood by, watching his daughter cry and be taken away. At that moment, young Ji-yeon didn't know what his mother was going through. Even though he had successfully achieved his goal of preventing his father's accident, he still had one difficult task left to make his mother smile from the bottom of her heart in front of his grandfather. After returning home, Eun-ji-yeon noticed that the servants appeared frightened. He asked where Chong-ah was, and the servant replied that she had gone out to attend a class and wasn't home. Eun-ji-yeon went to Chong-ah's room and saw the fax machine thrown on the floor. Eun-ji-yeon quickly realized that something had happened to Chong-ah. He threatened the servant that if they didn't tell the truth, he would call the police. When he found Chong-ah, he was heartbroken by the helpless look in her eyes. Eun-ji-yeon ignored his stepmother's attempts to stop him and was determined to take Chong-ah away. He vowed to expose his stepmother when Chong-ah's father returned, ensuring she faced the consequences for her actions. After saying that, young Ji-yeon took Chong-ah to Ji-chan's house. He recounted to Ji-chan and his grandmother what had happened to her. Ji-chan wanted to rush outside to confront the stepmother. But his grandmother stopped him and urged him to consider it from Chong-ah's perspective. Only in her can she decide what to do. Ji-chan hates herself for not being able to do anything. I feel more empathetic towards her experience. Because he believes that his father is no different from her father. The wandering father, addicted to gambling, has children and then irresponsibly abandons them. With the comfort of Eun-ji-yeon, Ji-chan gradually calmed down. The grandmother came to her room. She felt sorry for this poor child. She told her that next time if someone bullied her again, she shouldn't swallow her anger but should come here immediately, or she could have moved here to live with her permanently. She understood what her grandmother was saying. A girl who had lived in hell for many years felt, for the first time, the warm kindness of an elderly person. She couldn't help but rush into her grandmother's arms, crying desperately. Ji-chan and Eun-ji-yeon finished their conversation and went home. They saw her playing cards with others and her grandmother. A smile appeared on Eun-ji-yeon's face. Ji-chan joined the game. Everyone played enthusiastically together. Eun-ji-yeon stepped outside and shed tears. Finally, he understood. His parents also had a bitter youth, but they overcame the pain and hurt to become his parents. They always gave him and his brother the most beautiful and complete love. Eun-ju discovered information about her mother's biological father and realized that the uncle at the music store was her grandfather. And her grandfather was a legend in a Korean band. But there were rumors that he was dating a new actress and had a daughter out of wedlock, which led to the band's breakup. He then withdrew from the music scene. Whether the rumors were true or false remains a mystery to this day. Eun-ju disguised herself as her mother and went to her grandfather's music store to ask about her grandmother. At the end of the conversation, she cried and called Eun-ji-yeon. Eun-ju told Eun-jan that she missed their mother and wanted to eat her cooking. Eun-jan took Eun-yu to their grandmother's house and told her that she had an older brother. Talking about her brother, Eun-ji-yeon couldn't help but feel that she missed her brother very much. Eun-ju was startled when she heard the name of Eun-ji-yeon's brother, because when she was in the hospital being treated for temporary amnesia, she happened to meet Eun-ji-yeon's brother, and he was the one who taught her sign language. This made Eun-ji-yeon remember her brother mentioning that he had met a beautiful girl who played the cello. He couldn't believe that the girl was Eun-yu. Eun-ju couldn't help but sigh. Her relationship with Eun Ji-an was truly very complicated. Eun-ju recalled that she had heard her brother Eun Ji-an talk about the accident that caused their father to lose his hearing. It wasn't a festival day. It hadn't happened yet. While in the hospital, Eun Ji-an's brother had told her that he was writing a novel, and the main character was their father. Back in 1995, the thug was also a member of the band. When the band was rehearsing the night before the school anniversary, he was beaten up by the thugs. Ji-chan was also lightly injured. After this incident, the thug decided to leave the group, and the other members gradually quit as well. As a result, the band had to disband. Ji-chan wrote a new song to rebuild the band. So, he brought the tape to Se-kyung's father's music store to ask for his opinion, because he was one of the members of a famous band in his youth. But the uncle declined because he had guests visiting and promised to listen later when he had time. On the way home, Ji-chan was hit on the head by a boy playing with toys. He saw the boy's mother shopping nearby, so he played with the boy for a while. The boy's toys suddenly scattered in the middle of the road. At that moment, a car was approaching. Seeing the car about to hit the boy, Ji-chan rushed to save him. He was hit by the car and lost his hearing. Young Ji-yeon listened to Eun-ju's story and doubted its authenticity. He even suspected that this was a novel written by his brother. Actually, his brother had overheard this story through a friend of their father. Their father was at the hospital caring for his brother when he unexpectedly met an old high school friend. The friend eagerly wanted to know about their father's situation, but the father didn't recognize him and walked away dismissively. His brother wanted to know how their father lost his hearing due to the accident, so he went to a cafe with their father's friend. At that moment, his brother learned the entire story about their father's accident. After that, he turned it into a novel. Hearing this, young Ji-yeon completely believed the story. Young Ju also told him that the day Ji-chan's accident happened was tomorrow. Young Ji-yeon and Young Ju analyzed the location of the accident. They decided to take action the next day. Young Ji-yeon took responsibility for monitoring Ji-chan every step of the way. Eun-ju was present at the scene of the incident, minimizing any potential risks. After discussing, the two said their goodbyes, and Eun-ji-yeon hugged Eun-ju, thanking her for her companionship and support. He promised that he would treat her twice as well when they returned to the year 2023. Unexpectedly, just after the two said their goodbyes, two police officers appeared in front of Eun-ji-yeon and arrested him for bribery. On the way, Eun-ji-yeon noticed something was off. This road was not the way to the police station. Eun-ji-yeon quickly realized that the individuals were not police officers but rather villains sent by his stepmother. Knowing that their identities had been exposed, the two no longer pretended. They took out a contract drafted by his stepmother and forced Eun-ji-yeon to sign it. They promised to let him go as long as he signed it. Eun-ji-yeon was forced to press his fingerprint onto the agreement, completing the task while the other party intended to silence him. Eun-ji-yeon sensed that the situation was getting worse and tried to seize the steering wheel. The car swayed from side to side. Fortunately, the police arrived in time. Accompanying them was the secretary of his grandfather. At the same time, the stepmother received the signed contract via fax. The document stated that Eun-gi-yeon had intentionally approached her with malicious intent. Furthermore, from now on, he would never appear in this house again. Just as the stepmother was satisfied with the outcome, her father unexpectedly appeared. He immediately took the key to the basement and ordered the stepmother to open it. When Chong-ah was in the basement, she would paint on the walls. The stepmother had ordered someone to cover the walls with paper, but her father was very clever. He pushed down the coat hook on the wall and tore off the paper. The paintings immediately appeared before him. Her father, enraged, immediately slapped the stepmother and ordered her to leave the house with her two children. At the same time, he dismissed all the servants. The stepmother continued to explain, saying that everything he had heard was a lie, and that Eun-ji-yeon had kidnapped Chong-ah for ransom. Just as the stepmother finished speaking, Eun-gi-yeon appeared before her. It turned out that after taking Chong-ah away from the house, Eun-gi-yeon reflected on the treatment and harshness she had endured over the years. So, he sent a fax to inform her father. But he needed evidence to be able to drive the stepmother away. That's why he had been secretly monitoring the stepmother. That was why the secretary led the police to rescue Eun-ji-yeon. At that moment, Eun-ji-yeon finally proved everything. Seeing her plan had failed, the stepmother fell silent. Chong-ah was also ready to return to her home. Before leaving, she had prepared dinner for everyone. Everyone praised her, but after taking a bite, they all scrambled to escape outside. Only Ji-chan ate without changing his expression. After dinner, Ji-chan walked Chong-ah to the front of her house. Chong-ah took Ji-chan to introduce him to her father. Seeing her father in front of her, Chong-ah hid behind Ji-chan. She didn't know how to reconcile with her father. Ji-chan wanted to speak privately with Chong-ah's father. Eun-ji-yeon feared that Ji-chan would cause trouble, but Ji-chan remained very calm. He told Chong-ah's father that his grandmother did not understand sign language at all, but she had a wonderful time chatting with Chong-ah. He also told Chang'a's father that if he had anything to convey to her, communication was the best way. After saying that, he took out a sign language learning book. Ji-chan also told her father that he was the person protecting the children before they entered society. Although he didn't have the chance to have a father like that, he hoped Chang'a's father could be one. The problem was solved successfully. Jian put all his thoughts into Chan, hoping to prevent the accident from happening the next day. Jian returned to Giken's house once again. Waking up in the middle of the night, he discovered Chan was playing a piece of music. The song was exactly the one that the owner of the music store had taught Jian when he was little. At that time, he had said it was a work by an unknown composer. Jian couldn't believe that it was actually written by Giken. The song represented Giken's youth. It's a pity that it was still unfinished. Jian asked them to complete the composition together, but Chan had to promise two things. First, before the University Music Festival, no one could know about the existence of this song. Second, he must not go outside tomorrow. Giken quickly agreed, no longer negotiating with Jian as he had before. It was simply because he knew that everything Jian did was for his own benefit. After hearing Giken's words, Jian prayed in her heart. He had to protect his father's dream and allow his father's youth to continue shining. The next day, while Jian was with Giken, Eunju arrived at the scene of the incident. She saw the boy that Giken had saved, and the boy's toy hit Eunju on the head. Right after that, the mischievous boy suddenly ran into the street. At the same time, a loud screech of brakes echoed. At that moment, Jian received a call from Eunju. She said to him that everything came to an end. She had witnessed the accident in person. This time, no one was injured. Eun-gyeon's heart, which had been hanging in suspense, finally felt light. He invited Eunju to Giken's house. Eun-jian wanted to confirm one thing with her. On the way, Eunju stopped by her grandfather's music store. She wanted to know who the guest he had eagerly welcomed was when he rejected Giken. What she didn't expect was that her mother walked out of the music store. She then hailed a taxi and followed her mother, but she soon lost her mother. When Eun-gyeon arrived, Eunju told him about the time her mother visited their grandfather. Eun-gyeon remembered that car when she gave him his father's guitar. In other words, the owner of the music store now was Eunju's grandfather. He was also someone with whom Eun-gyeon had a close relationship when he was young. Eun-jian couldn't control his emotions and ran straight to the music store. What he didn't expect was that Giken was nearby as well. Not long ago, his best friend had accidentally played the song composed by Giken. He thought this song would be more suitable to play in the competition. So he took the tape and wanted to ask the owner of the music store for his opinion. Giken had promised Eun-jian not to let anyone hear this song. So he chased after his best friend the entire way. The two of them ran to the front of the music store. The voicemail of his best friend rang out. It was his father who had urged him to go home. Before leaving, he returned the tape to Giken and asked him to think carefully. Soon after, Eun-jian and Giken arrived at the music store at the same time. Suddenly, a car was about to hit Eun-jian. In that critical moment, Giken rushed forward and pushed him away. Giken was hit. Eun-jian crawled toward Giken, who was lying on the ground. What he didn't know was that while Giken was recording the song at the end, he had recorded a message for Eun-jian. He thanked Eun-jian for helping him complete the song. When he had one wish, it was for Eun-gyeon to always be by his side. Eun-jian always said that Giken was like a father to him, but Giken thought that Eun-gyeon was truly like a father to him. Eun-gyeon finally went over to his father. He hugged his father and cried loudly. Eun-jian's accident was not an accident, someone had planned it. Chang'a's stepmother hated Eun-gyeon for ruining everything. To take revenge, she lied that Eun-gyeon was the illegitimate child of their father and that he had come back only to fight for inheritance. She convinced her son to take action against Eun-gyeon. Her son believed her and pressed the gas and killed Eun-gyeon. But at that severe moment, Giken saved Eun-gyeon. After Giken's accident, Eunju rushed to the scene. She accidentally saw the license plate of the car that caused the accident and provided this information to the police. The ambulance took Giken and Eun-jian away. The uncle at the music store picked up Giken's tape from the ground and saw Eun-gyeon talking to the police. He thought Eun-jian had left and would come back. Eunju disguised himself as his mother and asked the question that she had always wanted to know. Did her father abandon her? In the end, she finally got her answer. Her father had never abandoned her. After the ambulance was adopted, he learned about the existence of his daughter. He wanted his daughter to come back, but seeing her happy in her new home, he couldn't bear to disrupt her happiness. Eunju felt sorry for everything her mother had gone through and spoke to him. If anyone who looks like her asks this question, please tell her that her father never abandoned her. She was never a replacement for anyone else. After saying that, Eun left. At that moment, the moon in the sky appeared unusually. The phone rang again, and both she and Eun-gyeon received calls from the owner of the old music store. He told them that tomorrow there would be 2 moons in the sky. That would also be the day they left. If they didn't come back, they would be trapped here forever. their traces in the future world would also disappear. At that moment, Ji-chan was in critical condition, and Eun-jian was worried and didn't want to leave like this. At that time, Ji-chan was undergoing a stressful surgery. In his dream, he saw himself in college, winning music competitions. The moment Ji-chan placed his graduation cap on his grandmother's head, he experienced the joy of success surrounded by friends and loved ones. The surgery was successfully completed. Ji-chan was transferred to the patient room. Eun-gyeon called Ji-chan, who was lying on the hospital bed, but Ji-chan did not react at all. It wasn't until Eun-gyeon reached out to touch Ji-chan that he finally turned around. Ji-chan told Eun-gyeon that he couldn't hear any sounds at all. Seeing Ji-chan's panicked and sad expression, Eun-ju felt a deep pain. He wanted to find the murderer who had harmed his father and make him pay with blood. Eun-ju stopped him and informed Eun-gyeon that the police had captured the culprit. The perpetrator was the son of the stepmother. He was also Chang-ah's half-brother. At that moment, Chang-ah had no idea what had happened to Ji-chan. During this time, her father was at home with her, trying to communicate using sign language. Seeing her father's efforts, Chang-ah finally smiled. She sent a fax to share the good news with Ji-chan. She had no idea that Ji-chan was going through the darkest time of his life. Chang-ah's father, upon learning about his son's actions, decided to let him take responsibility. At the same time, he arranged for Chang-ah to study abroad. He also didn't tell her about everything Ji-chan had been through. To make up for the harm caused to Ji-chan, Chang-ah's father decided to cover all of Ji-chan's expenses and tuition fees. Hearing that the stepmother's son was the perpetrator, Eun-gyeon rushed to the police station to confront him. Eun-ju arrived and pulled Eun-gyeon away. She discussed returning to 2023, but Eun-gyeon didn't want to leave. He wanted to restore everything to how it was before. Eun-ju reminded him that the only thing he could do was to entrust his fate to Ji-chan. She believed Ji-chan would be able to rise again and overcome his current difficulties. After saying that, Eun-gyeon agreed to meet her in front of her house at 9 p.m. After saying goodbye to Eun-ju, Eun-gyeon awkwardly headed to the furniture store. The shop owner handed Eun-gyeon Ji-chan's tape, reminding him to listen to it until the end. Before leaving, Eun-gyeon first wished his uncle good health. Moreover, if he had the chance, he needed to reconcile with his daughter. Eun-gyeon left the music store and listened to Ji-chan's tape. Along with the music, beautiful memories of Ji-chan echoed in his mind. After the song ended, Ji-chan thanked Eun-gyeon for helping him. Eun-gyeon once said that Ji-chan was his future father. But in Ji-chan's eyes, Eun-gyeon resembled a father figure more. He made him feel cared for and nurtured. Ji-chan wished that in the next life, he would be reborn as Eun-gyeon's father. Listening to Ji-chan's voice, Eun-gyeon was moved to tears. After gathering his thoughts, Eun-gyeon went to the hospital to visit Ji-chan. Ji-chan saw Eun-gyeon's sad expression reflected in the glass, as if he were drifting away from himself. When Ji-chan learned that Eun-gyeon was from the future, he wondered what he would look like in that future. Would he succeed in getting into college, or would he still leave his grandmother worried? Would he continue to form his favorite band and live each day seriously? In Eun-geology's heart, Ji-chan was a wonderful father. In the future, he would live well, shining brighter than anyone else. Unfortunately, Ji-chan couldn't hear his answer. Eun-geology talked to Ji-chan that he had to stick to the agreement and be brave to overcome difficulties. After hearing Ji-chan say it wasn't his fault and telling him to just go, Eun-gyeon was determined to return to his own time. He went to meet Eun-ju, but unexpectedly, she went to the furniture store, and the tram suddenly ran out of power on the way. When she looked up at the moon about to break in two, realizing she didn't have much time left, Eun-ju screamed for help. Unfortunately, there was no one around, and Eun-gyeon had to return alone. Suddenly, everything around him plunged into darkness. 2 moons appeared in the sky, and the furniture store materialized before him. Eun-gyeon stepped into the furniture store, and without hesitation, he took out the flashlight to find his own guitar. Eun-gyeon woke up again in the large house of Chang-ah's family. He went to the living room and saw the family photo hanging on the wall. His father, mother, and he were all captured in that photo. Eun-gyeon quickly called Eun-ju's phone number. Unfortunately, it was the wrong number. He went back to the front of Eun-ju's house. A strange woman answered the door, leaving Eun-gyeon very confused. He guessed that Eun-ju must have been trapped in the past. Eun-gyeon had barely taken a few steps when he received a call from a former band member. They wanted to invite him to participate in an event. Shortly after, a few female students surrounded him, unexpectedly taking pictures of Eun-gyeon. Eun-gyeon quickly ran away from them. In the process, he accidentally jumped into a luxury car, where the band members were sitting. Now, Eun-gyeon and the members formed a popular boy band. They were invited to attend a brand event that night and had to perform. Upon arriving, he realized he was a member of the famous music group Under Milligram. He was also a model for G-song instruments. Through the silence and changes of the present, Eun-gyeon tried to organize his thoughts. Just then, his older brother appeared before him. Eun-gyeon hugged his brother and told him that he had never considered him a burden. The two brothers laughed and playfully wrestled as they usually did. At that moment, Chang-ah arrived at the event, and Eun-gyeon also searched for information about his mother. His mother had taken over his grandfather's business and was now the chairwoman involved in charitable activities. She had become a truly career-driven woman. Eun-gyeon was proud of his mother. After that, their mother arrived at the event with her two sons. Chang-ah was busy catching up with old friends, some of whom had formed a band with Ji-chan in high school. Eun-gyeon still remembered that his father had actively cut off contact with his friends, because seeing his friends would remind him of the accident that caused his hearing loss. He also didn't want to see the sad expressions on his friends' faces. But this time, his father chose not to distance himself from his friends anymore. Eun-gyeon was very pleased about that. It seemed that his father had overcome the difficult times. As the event began, his father appeared on stage, and Eun-gyeon flipped through the magazine in his hands. He was shocked to discover that his father was actually the head of the guitar division of the company. His father had studied in the US and communicated with everyone using sign language. On stage, he also shared the story of his accident and how he became deaf. At first he felt so scared. After a boring duration, he decided not to give up himself. He began learning sign language and imagined sounds in his mind. After expressing what he wanted to say, his father picked up the guitar and played a short piece. His father's humor and optimism filled Eun-gyeon with pride. Eun-gyeon began preparing for his upcoming performance. He ran into his father. Eun-gyeon took the initiative to hug his father and thanked him for keeping his promise. As Eun-gyeon was leaving, he accidentally dropped Ji-chan's tape, and his father noticed it. His father's face was filled with surprise. When it was Eun-gyeon's group's turn to perform, his father's friends watched as Eun-gyeon gave it his all on stage. They always felt he looked familiar, watching Eun-gyeon play the guitar, and his father smiled. He had discovered Eun-gyeon's identity. At the end of the performance, Eun-gyeon saw Eun-ju in the audience. He hurriedly chased after her outside. Reuniting with his love, Eun-gyeon couldn't hold back his emotions and placed a kiss on the lips of the girl he loved. Speaking of Eun-ju, at that moment, she could barely return to the future. Fortunately, she found a tractor and asked for a ride. No matter how slowly the tractor moved, it was still better than walking. With the help of the tractor, Eun-gyeon arrived at the old music store just in time to retrieve his cello. She was eager to return to her own world to learn about her mother's fate. Before she arrived at the old music store, she met her mother, who had just returned from America. Eun-gyeon encouraged her mother to ask their grandfather for details on why he had abandoned her. This way, she would get the answers to her own unresolved questions. Eun-ju told her mother that she was not a replacement for anyone, but a unique individual. This time, returning to the present, aside from meeting her mother, Eun-ju wanted to see Eun-gyeon, the love of her life.